Oh my goodness. How about that, folks? What a crazy, zany, remarkable day of college football on into the night. Where do we start? Where do we start? I've got to tell you that I did not see the final play against the Miami Georgia Tech game. So I did not see the final play. I was producing two segments, Kentucky and Georgia. I'm sure you'll want to check that out, as that was the stellar game of the day. Certainly check out our instant analysis of Georgia and Kentucky, and also of Louisville taking out Notre Dame. So I did not see the debacle that is the Miami Hurricanes' latest faux pas, and Mario Cristobal botching a game. Apparently, I did see some of the post-game comments on the ACC network and the reaction from Brent Key and Haynes King. So that's kind of the culmination of the day at this point as we stand, but so much to get to here at the Voice of College Football. It started with the Red River rivalry at noon. That was a remarkable game with so many twists and turns, so many big plays, special teams, fumbles, interceptions, remarkable offensive performances on both sides of the ball. Defense, just two excellent teams going at it to the wire. Ohio State comes back from 10 down to win their game going away against Maryland. Michigan dominant tonight, but the real drama was Louisville, Notre Dame. That was a good ball game, tightly contested game. And then Louisville really took control mid-third quarter against Notre Dame, sent the Irish to a second loss. We talked about Miami and Georgia Tech, as Georgia Tech was completely dominated in that game statistically and just found a way to hang in there, stay in there. And then they pull off the miracle at the end to win the game after the Miami coaching mistake. And Ole Miss and Arkansas, an excellent game as well tonight. So we will get to it. Texas A&M, Bama, of course, a huge one earlier in the day, in which Bama came back from a touchdown down at halftime. Let's quickly just go through the scores in progress, and then we will get to your calls. You have arrived at the Voice of College Football. If you have yet to check out the channel, please do that. But right now, just stay right here. Enjoy yourself. Leave your questions and comments there in the chat. You can help support us via Super Chat or Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App at the Voice of College Football right here. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. You'll want to search Mark Rogers TV. All right, in progress. Oregon State 28, Cal 23. That game's in the third quarter. Arizona leads USC 17-7. It's near halftime. That vaunted USC offense with one touchdown against lowly Arizona at home with minutes left in the first half. And in FBS play, that's all we've got. The rest are finals. So let's go to the phone lines. We're not going to go through all the finals. We will talk college football with you, whatever game, whatever topic, whatever it is. And we'll start with the real MVP. DeReal, what's going on tonight?
Mark, you know, the Kentucky Wildcats took an absolute beat down in Athens, Georgia. And, you know, I was a little bit disappointed. I was a little bit bummed out because I thought at least they would be competitive. I didn't think they would win. I thought Georgia had the better athletes. But then, you know, in order to lift my spirits up, I decided to watch Georgia Tech Miami. And, Mark, I want you to explain this to me. I know it can't be explained because there's no rational explanation, no analytical model that will say this. But let me paint a scenario for you, okay? And this actually happened. This isn't hypothetical. This actually happened in a football game. Georgia Tech has 0 timeouts. 0. It's third down, okay? Miami has the football with 33 seconds left to do. What would you do, Mark?
Where I did not see the sequence. So Miami's get the football. There's 33 seconds left in the game. It's third down and what?
10.
Third down and 10. Georgia Tech's got no timeouts. Where's the ball?
Georgia Tech's 26.
Oh, they've got the ball at the Georgia Tech 26-yard line.
Yes.
And you're up 23-20.
You're up, 23-17. You're up 20-17. You're up 20-17.
You're up by 3 points. Regardless what the score is, you're up by 3 points. and they can't stop the clock, I'm not going to kick a field goal. I'm going to run the football.
Can I ask you, maybe it's just me, but why wouldn't you just go in victory?
You have to snap the ball one more time, correct?
Yes, but why don't you just take a victory formation and take a knee?
Because you've got 33 seconds left, so 35-second play clock. So you're telling me they've got no timeouts. I'm trying to take the situation in. I didn't get all that information.
Okay, Georgia Tech has no
kneel. They could basically kneel and run out the clock.
Yes.
But what did they do? Run the ball?
They ran the ball and fumbled it, and Georgia Tech recovered.
And then Georgia Tech had roughly 25 seconds to go 75 yards. And they did.
Yeah, hold on. I might have got the exact spot of the ball wrong. No, I didn't. Yeah, they went 4 plays, 75 yards. And during the 4 plays, first play was incompletion. Second play was a 30-yard completion where the receiver walked out of bounds. And then the 4th play was, I don't know why, the safety bit with like 10 seconds left to go in the game. It was in the middle of the field, and he just walked into the end zone. It made no rational sense.
Well, yeah, as long as you can snap the ball if you've got less time on the actual game clock than you do on the play clock, then you're good to go. Or even in that situation, if you have to do something and you have to run one more play, then I would run one more play, knowing that they would have to run one more play and they'd have to go 80 yards in one play to win the game.
Right, but they didn't even need to run one more play because the game play clock is 40 seconds. The game clock was 33 seconds.
Yeah, well, Mario Cristobal does a decent job running a program, building a program, but he is not a game manager, and has this has kind of cropped up at different times with him.
I understand that, Mark, but any coach at any level, literally any level of football, should be able to do this amount of math. I mean, this is
be able to, but apparently they can't. Some can't.
I've seen 2 examples of this that I know of. This and the Giants Eagles game from way back in the day. That's the only 2 examples of this I can think of ever occurring. This isn't something that happens every year, Mark.
It used to happen with Les Miles quite a bit. Not that exact, but where there was only one thing that you can do and you could ice a game and he would fail to do it.
I get that, but all you had to do, like Les Miles would do things where like he would throw the ball down the field and he wouldn't get his field goal unit on and instead try to spike the ball. But this, all you have to do is just take a knee and you win the game. Just take a knee. And the game is over. There's no mathematical way Georgia Tech wins the game if you take a knee. And not only that, but on defense, they didn't play any prevent defense. This is unexcusable, Mark. I mean, if you're a Miami fan,
that's what you get when you get Mario Cristobal. He's good at certain. I tweeted this out earlier today when people were taking shots at Ryan Day, and of course they shut up when they came back and won the game by 20 points. But when the Wolves are out, when it's 10-0, people are taking shots at Ryan Day, and I let a number of people know that it is possible. It is actually common to be for certain people to be highly successful at their job and be really good at various facets of that job, but to have areas of needed improvement and weakness within that job. Both can be true. You can be exceptional at your job, but be very poor at certain aspects of it.
I understand very poor, Mark, but this isn't like even very poor. This is like just unfunctional, okay? This is like having a computer program and then one of the steps just completely doesn't work, so the rest of the system fails. Like it's like having a virus in your computer level bad, okay?
What can I say?
This is catastrophic.
Right. Yeah.
This isn't not working. This is complete disaster. Anyway, I guess we'll move on to other games, Mark. Notre Dame.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Notre Dame got whipped on both lines of scrimmage. They lost to Louisville. They got dominated by Louisville. What has happened to the Notre Dame football program? I mean, ever since Brian Kelly left, I've seen them take unexcusable losses after unexcusable losses. Do you think that could be a factor in this?
Now, the Notre Dame fans, by and large, all the ones at least that comment on this channel, they wouldn't tell you that. They would say that life is so much better with Marcus Freeman, that Brian Kelly, we were so glad that he left town. We can't stand him. He was a marginal coach. He did this wrong and that wrong, and he didn't compete in recruiting, and he didn't win big games, and he didn't all these things. But Marcus Freeman is a godsend, and he's just walks on water. I'm not seeing it play out on the field. I didn't see it last year when they lost to Marshall and Stanford, and I'm not seeing this year. And that's not a long-term shot at Marcus Freeman, that he cannot develop into a first-rate coach, but he's not one right now. The issues with Notre Dame, in my eyes, is that, number one, Sam Hartman's a tremendous quarterback, but there are this game is morphed into a situation where if you have a true dual threat quarterback, that's a huge advantage, or it's not even an advantage. It's more or less, if you don't, then that's a disadvantage. And he can move. He's not a statue, but they don't have that component. And then on top of that, they have no threat downfield. Like, I kept hearing the entire off season about different guys that were supposed to step up, that this guy was this fast. This guy's a 4.3 guy. This guy's a 4.3 guy. No, they're not. I don't see it. And if they are, then they don't know how to run routes and catch the football, because their wide receiver play is not good. They got an excellent tight end. Their offensive line is usually dominating, but it's not the same Notre Dame offensive line. It's a decent offensive line, but it's not a really good offensive line. And I don't really have any issues with their defense necessarily. I think they've got a pretty darn good defense, but I think they're limited by an offensive line that's not as good as what they need it to be, and not any playmakers in space.
I would agree with everything you said, and I just want to highlight the Sam Hartman point. So Notre Dame brings him in, a sixth-year guy. In my opinion, this is an all or nothing type year. You've got one of your best quarterbacks you've had probably since Brady Cook, and they don't look any improved at all. They went to the last play to Ohio State, and they're out of the playoff. They can't win anything that they want to. Just embarrassing. Mark, Sam Hartman, okay, his last 2 games against Louisville has 11 turnovers in 2 games. How's that possible? How?
Good memory about the game that Sam Hartman and Wake played against Louisville last year. Yeah, that was just a turnover fest. He was making some interceptions late in this game out of desperation, but the first interception he threw, I didn't think was a bad pass. I thought the receiver didn't turn his head and go after the football. Don't recall the second interception offhand. Yeah, that was a bad pass. That was a horrible pass, horrible decision. The last one was they were down by 13. They still had a prayer. They had about 90 seconds left, and he threw it behind the guy. He tipped it in the air, and it was picked off. Last year was
2 fumbles as well.
The fumbles. I'm trying to remember the fumbles and how those occurred. Yeah, you got to protect the football. I don't care how good you are, and if you throw for 400 yards a game, and he's not even doing that like he did at Wake, you've got to protect the football.
Right. He only had 254 yards passing today, so just clearly not a good.
Yeah, really, nobody can turn over the ball. But if teams are going to turn over the football, then you've got to be a vintage Alabama, Georgia type teams that can compete for national championships. They can get away with it on occasion against really good teams, but Notre Dame can't. That's for sure.
Right. And I'm looking at the ACC as a whole. Miami lost today. Florida State has struggled. Is Louisville the best team in the ACC?
Oh, that's a good one right there. Maybe.
I'll even take it a step farther, Mark. If you look at their schedule, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're at Pitt, They're home. They get a bye. Then they're home against Duke. We don't know about their quarterback. Home against both Virginia schools. On the road at Miami. Home against Kentucky. Dark horse playoff team potentially, Mark. Dark horse
Sure.
playoff team.
Yeah.
I mean, credit to Louisville. I mean, they look like the best team in state as of today. And they got a year one head coach, and they look a whole lot better than a year two head coach at Notre Dame, who has access to infinitely more resources, I would imagine, than Louisville, Mark.
Yeah, I didn't see a whole lot of the Florida State Virginia Tech game. I saw that FSU was up 22-0, so I didn't bother with it. And then I saw that they returned the second half kickoff, Virginia Tech, to get back in the game like 24-19. And they were right there for a little while at Florida State. So that's not an impressive win, defeating Virginia Tech by a couple scores.
Exactly, Mark. And the final game I'll mention is the Red River rivalry. What a heck of a game, Mark. I mean, that was the most insane, 7-8 minutes of football I've seen in the first quarter.
Yep.
Oklahoma pulled it out. Do they just have a golden ticket to make the Big 12 title game now?
You know what's funny about that outcome is that West Virginia controls its own destiny and Texas does not. If West Virginia, unless I'm missing something here, they play Oklahoma. They do not play Texas. So if West Virginia would win the rest of its games and Oklahoma would only lose to West Virginia, then those two teams would rematch in the Big 12 championship game. And West Virginia is not exactly playing a murderer's row. Now, do I have confidence that West Virginia is going to win all these games against okay teams? Probably not, because that's all they are, is an okay team, like a top 50 team in America. But they could win every game. They're not playing anybody out of the ordinary other than Oklahoma. So that would be the one there. And I don't know who would win some kind of tiebreaker between West Virginia and Texas. If it came down to that would go deep into the tie-breaking system. But that's kind of an oddity that would be funny if that took place. We could see West Virginia in the Big 12 championship. We could see Louisville in the ACC championship game.
Who knows? And Mark, West Virginia plays the 4 newcomers, Oklahoma State and Baylor.
Besides Oklahoma. Okay.
Right. I think that's basically one of the most favorable draws, so you can have the rest of the way.
No,
none of the newcomers have won against anybody other than a newcomer yet.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, it was 0-6 before this week, and I can't recall who would have played who. UCF got trounced by Kansas today. So there's one loss. I don't know what the other ones did off the top of my head. So, yes, winless.
Right. I see Houston had a bye, but I don't know about the other two. But, Mark, anyway, that's all I got for you. Fight on to the Virginia Cavaliers, getting their huge win against William and Mary.
All right. Good stuff right here at the Voice of College Football, folks. While you listen, you might be online shopping, and you might be on Amazon shopping. So while you're on Amazon, grab the link that we provide. It's in the description section of all the videos, and it does cost you a penny, and you help us continue to grow and build and do all those good things that we do on a regular basis. All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We got Jeffrey on the line.
Hey, Mark, what a day of college football. I can say that with the Miami situation, just to, I guess, reiterate what Darrell was trying to say about that play, all they had to do was kneel the ball. Under 40 seconds, under 35 seconds, whatever. They have the ball with the lead, and they run the football. And by the way, I felt that his elbow was down. For some reason, I think that they said that the ball barely was starting to move a bit right before his elbow hit. But since the call on the field was fumble, they kept it. But I actually think he was down. But my Miami fans will be happy that I'm trying to defend them a little bit there. But there is no excuse for running the ball. You got to kneel it. There's no reason in the world why you cannot just kneel it. It's insanity. So Miami blew it. I was shocked, to be honest with you, because I felt with North Carolina and Miami playing two teams that are not very good, more, most people's eyes are not very good. And then they're about to play each other. I thought North Carolina was going to be the team, my home state team. I thought they were going to be the ones that struggled today. They blew out Syracuse. And then you've got Georgia Tech, who lost to Bowling Green. Then they go out there, beat Miami, and then Bowling Green loses to Miami, Ohio, 27-0 today. So,
and Miami of
crazy.
Florida beat Miami of Ohio. So all of you transitive property people, you try to figure that one out because it doesn't work.
Indiana, you can do the same thing because they barely beat Akron in 4 overtimes, but Akron today just lost 55-14 to Northern Illinois. So again, Indiana's so much worse than Northern Illinois, right? But hey, they were only within 1 score of Louisville, who now we think is going to win the ACC. And they're going to make the playoff now. Even though last week we said, Kentucky's possibly the best team in the SEC, and then they get destroyed, which I will say, I feel very upset for Kentucky fans and the real MVP. But I saw this coming. You remember last week, because I was talking to you about this, and you said, well, we'll have to see. Maybe Kentucky is, legit. And I was like, I don't know, Mark. I don't think they are. Ray Davis isn't going to do what he did against Florida, one of the worst road teams of all time, putting up 280 on the ground with no tackling against Georgia. He didn't. Carson Beck played the best game of his life. So it was ugly. And I did say I felt Kentucky being ranked would make it worse. Georgia showed up to play. They played Auburn and they played South Carolina, who were both not ranked. What happened? They barely won.
I don't care.
But then they played Kentucky and they
just ranked.
I know that, but there's something about it, though, to me.
They know their football players. They know these guys. They've played against them. They know who's good and who's not good. They watch game film. They don't care who's ranked.
But it's about the narrative of, kind of like Indiana in a lot of games, especially early Tom Allen, when no one thought they'd have a shot, and then they would hang with Michigan. It's like you put that ranked number on there, and then Georgia's like, okay, we're gonna. Y'all remember when Tennessee last year, when they had the #1 ranking in the CFP rankings, and Georgia was like 2 or 3 or whatever, and then Georgia just destroyed Hendon Hooker in Tennessee. I don't know. I think there's something to it, just a little bit. I mean, again, it's all superstition narrative, but I do think it plays a bit of a factor. But I mean, again, sorry for Kentucky fans, but I did expect Georgia to blow them out because I just didn't think that they were a top tier SEC team. I think they're good, but I don't think that they are a top tier team. Now, for Louisville, you read the schedule, and there is a legitimate shot that Louisville could go to the ACC title game. And there is an outside chance that they could go undefeated. But even if they did, and just say that they went undefeated and made the playoff, do you think, Mar, obviously, because basically every time I come on here and I'm talking about all these results that basically don't mean anything because it just shows you that teams are inconsistent and play better or worse on given nights. But do you think more than likely that Louisville, if they somehow made the playoff, would be just like Cincinnati? They wouldn't have a shot, more than likely. They just get blown out against a Georgia or Ohio State or whatever, and they wouldn't even be competitive, because that's what I see. I think they would. I don't think they'd be competitive at all.
I don't think that they would either. More than likely. I don't think that I think we've seen a few examples just looking at the quarterback position of quarterbacks who are not superstar quarterbacks that are not as good as the other 3 quarterbacks. And obviously the entirety of the team matters, but Jack Plummer versus the other quarterbacks that he's going to face in a playoff, I just don't see it.
I mean, I don't like ragging on, teams, especially when I know like people on, line that are fans of certain team, like Austin. Austin likes Louisville. And I don't want to rag on Louisville, but I just feel like, oh no, we're starting to get in this territory now where Louisville got a big win. It's like Kentucky. Now we're thinking big here. And with Louisville's schedule, they have a shot to do it. Kentucky, I never thought they did. Louisville has a shot, but I just don't think that they're that good. I mean, they're a solid team, but I watched Louisville barely beat Georgia Tech, barely beat Indiana, and barely beat NC State. Those are 3 not very great teams. Like, I admit Indiana's pretty bad. Yeah, they're not
absolutely, good. But they could be getting better because teams do change. But I'm with you. I don't think Louisville is one of the best teams in the country. I think they're one of the 20 or 25 best teams in the country, something in that range.
I would say top 30 to 35. I'm lower than that, but you could be right.
But I don't think that much matters when you play the top 3 or 4 teams in the country. And so, I would not expect, I don't think Louisville is going to make it out of this season with less than 2 losses.
I mean, the
just
thing
think,
is that I've always felt with the record is not indicative of what you are. Because when I was a kid, I used to buy into it because I didn't know any better. I just watched football and I'd be like, wow, that team's 10-2. They're really good. Louisville, if they go 10-2, I will be so happy for Austin and like I know a few other Louisville people as well. I will be very happy for them because Louisville, they haven't had a season like this in a long time, and no one expected them to be quote unquote this good. But the schedule is not great. And granted, they've played decent teams and they did what they needed to do. They won the game. So all credit to them. And they got a big win today over Notre Dame. But Notre Dame played horrible football. And it seemed like their rough stretch caught up to them. They played Ohio State, gave it everything they had and lost. They played Duke, were in a rock fight, found a way to win that one. And now you're playing your third straight game in a row against a really solid opponent. And you're playing USC next week. Again, you don't want to make excuses, but it just felt like, especially Notre Dame's defense in the second half, they ran out of gas. I mean, they completely ran out of gas. And Sam Hartman, like you said, isn't mobile enough to scramble around, and he's just getting sacked left and right. It just seemed like Notre Dame kind of just broke. Like they just ran out of gas in the tank, and Louisville took advantage. And again, nothing against Louisville. I think they're a really solid team, but they're probably one of the worst teams left that have a shot to win, to get to the playoff. You mentioned that the other day about teams that were still, like Missouri before they lost today, like teams that were undefeated that could make the playoff if they won out. Louisville's probably one of the worst, and that's not a knock on them. It's just the way I see it. But I've talked long enough about that. Bama won today. Family's happy. They look good enough. Milroe played good enough. The defense is the key, though. I feel like Alabama's defense, if they had the type defense they have right now with Bryce Young last year or the year before, they'd have been better. Like their defense is really helping them out this season because their offense isn't as good. They're not Bryce Young offense. Milroe can't put up 400 yards, combined stats, rushing or pass. He can't do it. Bryce could. And I think that the defense is bailing them out in some of these games. So do I think Alabama can make the CFP? It's possible. Is it likely? No. I think they probably will lose again. I picked them to go 10-2 anyway, but I think that the defense is the reason they won. And yes, the play calling going for a pass late in that game when they could have just run the clock out as well was dumb. There was a lot of dumb plays today. I mean, that's like the common theme, and then the Miami one just topped it. But yeah, so Alabama, I don't know if you thought that their performance against A&M was impressive or not, but I thought that they did a pretty good job today, even with the mistakes.
Yeah, I give Bama a ton of credit. I think they're an excellent team. I think they're doing the right things with Jalen Milroe. I thought they played an excellent defensive game, and I think that's one of the toughest places to play. And I was impressed with them coming back from a touchdown down. And that game landed right in the scoring range that I felt that it would, like we talked about a number of times this past week, in the low 20s. So, it was the kind of game that there wasn't a lot of possessions, not a lot of time to come back and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I thought it was a good effort.
So with UNC beating Syracuse the way that they did, they look really good. And Miami losing, do you think that, I know it's all hypothetical, but do you think it's possible that Miami, because they lost, could come back out next week and just play the game of their life?
Oh, sure.
Beat North Carolina, because I think that's possible.
No great team.
I know that, and that's what I'm worried about, because I feel like, I'm like, hey, North Carolina just won big today, and Miami, they just lost, and they're, horrible play calling and decisions, and I'm like, well, Miami's probably still more talented than North Carolina, and they're probably going to be mad they just lost this game. So now I'm kind of like, I don't even know who to pick. I'm not even thinking about picking games right now, but that's to me, that's a bad thing for North Carolina. But I don't know if you think it matters or not, whether they won or lost and how it affects next week. I don't know.
Well, I think it affects different. I think it affects teams. Yeah, I think it matters, but how it affects them, I don't know. It could be a bounce back in motivation, or it could kind of send them off the rails.
Yeah, no, it's why it's pointless for me to even say it, because we don't know until we watch. I know, but that's the debate and the talk and the discussion. I love your slogan, the best debate and discussion analysis in the game. It is. I mean, because you just talk about anything.
Yeah, the only thing you can go by in my estimation, Jeffrey, is you go by the coach's record in terms of, if it's a Nick Saban type, and obviously he's the obvious example, but that they've been able to get teams back focused and prepared and bouncing back versus coaches that have allowed their teams to run off the rails like Sark did a couple years ago when they were 5-2 and they blew a 28-point lead against Oklahoma, and then the rest of the season was just off the rails and just plummeted. In Miami, Mario Cristobal, Miami last year, they lost a couple games that they shouldn't have, and then their entire season tanked. Well, we'll see what they're made of next week. We'll see if they bounce back, they get refocused, or if they're going to hang their heads and sulk about this and not.
Yeah, I
have more faith in North Carolina and Mac Brown in that way than I do Mario Cristobal in Miami. I will say that.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. It's going to be a good game. I hope North Carolina plays well. I'm sure there's tons of people, because I see them already in the private chat, like to get to a few more games real quick. Texas. I picked Texas, and they let me down. I thought they're going to win. They came back, and they won. All credit to Oklahoma going down the field in the final minute of the game. But I'm just like, oh, you did it again, Texas. You could not close. You got everybody believing in you. And I put a poll on Twitter saying to people, do you think Texas is back? And like 60% of them said no. It's a cliche thing because I just love the whole Texas is back thing. Like, oh, they beat Bama, they're back, and now they're not back. It's like they're still in the top 10. They can still make the playoff. Everything's in front of them still possibly. But yeah, they're not back anymore just because they lost a 4-point game. But if they beat Oklahoma by 4, they're still back. That's why I love football. It's hilarious.
Yeah, Oklahoma is the most recent team that this week faced its first challenge and passed the test. And that's a big deal because they were no good last year because Brent Venables has never been a head coach. This is the biggest game he's ever coached, and they were an underdog. Few people gave them much of a chance. I got to admit, I gave them a chance to win. It didn't surprise me that they won, but I didn't pick them to win. I looked at every unit on both sides of the ball, and I just didn't know where they had an advantage over Texas. Texas just looked like a much more complete, talented team that had already trashed Kansas easily, rang up 700 yards of total offense. And then, of course, with the Bama win, and Oklahoma hadn't played anyone. So that was the logical way to go. But yeah, that was a heck of a game.
Oh, it was a fantastic game. I was just disappointed in Texas's defense on that last drive because their D-line is supposed to be, one of the best in the country. They just were not getting pressure on Dylan Gabriel. But again, credit to Oklahoma for getting the ball out quick. A couple other games, I was happy NC State won because everybody was saying I should have went with Marshall. Everybody, including Buckeye Mike. You remember the whole Marshall spill. Cam Fancher, Rashid Ali, and MJ Morris, and even Brennan Armstrong came to the game a little bit. They got it done, 48-41. Where was the defense? What happened to 13-10 Louisville? You see what I'm saying? NC State, they give up 13 points to Louisville, but then you give up 41 to Marshall. Again, these teams are all over the place. I picked it like 28-24 NC State. I thought it'd be a lower scoring game, but hey, they won, so I was happy about that one. Clemson barely beat Wake. When Wake lost to Georgia Tech, I don't know. It's insane. These teams are insane. Clemson, you get people back on your bandwagon, beating Syracuse on the road fairly comfortably. Then you go back home and you barely beat Wake. Clemson, I don't know. It blows my mind. I love football for this reason of how up and down these teams are, but it makes picking these teams just hard, and the spreads and everything.
I'm only confident of about 7 or 8 teams. And not that they're not going to struggle like Georgia has a couple times against Auburn and South Carolina, but I believe in Georgia. I believe in Michigan. I believe in Ohio State. I believe in Alabama. And I know a lot of people are down on Alabama and they're not that good, but I'm not saying they're incapable of losing. But until they run into each other, I don't think those teams are going to lose.
You're not saying that they're going to be losing to a Wake type team or a Vanderbilt. If they're going to lose, they're going to lose to a quality football team in a tough environment on the road more than likely.
Yes.
Even if it's at home, it's a top game. I get that. The Wyoming win as well was a good game against Fresno. Great for the Mountain West to get some love. And they said it was the first win in primetime on national television for Wyoming since 1988 versus BYU, which was insane. But yeah, it stinks for the Wyoming running back. He got injured in the game, and the Fresno State quarterback got injured in the game. But yeah, Wyoming ended up pulling that one out. That was a good game as well. But so many great games. I'm looking forward to next week. I'm sure there's a million other games I could talk about. Like I said, there's a lot of people probably behind me. Iowa beat Purdue as well with their horrible offense, but hey, they did good enough on defense. Just so many games. But I had a blast watching. I think I went around 60% on my picks this week. Wasn't that great. I didn't do awful, but there was a lot of games I did get wrong. But hey, that's just the nature of football. But appreciate you having me on, and I cannot wait to start looking ahead to next week. But my mind has a lot more to think about what we just saw. And in Arizona, they're currently, I think they're still winning against USC.
Yep.
USC's defense is going to cost them a chance to win a title because their offense, USC's offense, is just not going to be able to bail them out every game. But thanks for having me on.
Thanks. Appreciate it. All right. We will keep it moving. We got about 11 lined up, so we will move along here a little bit quicker than we have been. And I'd like to check out my picks now that Jeffrey brought his up. All right. Let's go to Matthew here. All right, Matthew, you've had a long time to let it settle in. I'm not saying that makes it easier, but
no, it's not going to settle in because I'm going to say this, and I just want you to see if I'm being irrational here. I think if we don't play in my opinion, I don't think it's an F game. I think we could have played worse, but a C- game. If we played, is what I thought we played. If we played a B game, Mark, we win that game, correct?
Well, I was watching that game at the same time I was watching at least one, if not two other games. So what I lose when that happens is having some kind of a gauge on really focusing on the flow of the game and decisions and all of that business. But okay, so what are you talking about here?
The 3 turnovers by Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, he threw 2 interceptions early,
and then the fumble.
Okay, did Oklahoma not turn the ball over?
Nope.
So they had no turnovers. So you're down 3-zip in turnovers?
Yeah, I wonder what the record is of people that do that. It's probably not good.
Oh, it's really low.
Yeah. And we lost by 4.
I believe that if you're -2, it's like a 15% chance of winning.
So you're probably what, 5% with 3?
Yeah, something like that. I think with today's game, because of all the scoring and everything, it's a little bit crazier. I'm guessing it's not quite what it used to be, but it's still, yeah, you're in a hole doing it that way.
Yeah, and by the way, I give Oklahoma credit because they came out and punched his mouth early. And on the preview show with Jason, we talked about that. That was key for them to come out and do that. And they did it. They did it right away. And that was the 2 interceptions were 100% on Quinn. They're both bad throws. The fumble, I mean, that was a great hit. He hit him low. Right.
Oh, yeah, I remember the fumble now in the open field.
I have no issue with that.
That was a great helmet on the ball.
Yep. Yeah, you literally can do nothing about that. So I have no issue with that. But when he settled in, I mean, he had 4 incompletions the rest of the game. 4. He played a very good game in the second half. That's what pissed me off so much is like, when we kicked the field, I was like, are we really going to win this game playing like this? Like, we did not play good at all, and we were going to win. And then Jeffrey was talking about that. We lost the game because we played prevent defense. We rushed 3 the first 2 plays of that.
I've got to go through my notes on this game because I posted a video on this game, and I had some issues with a few things Texas did. I did not like Sark running the offense into the ground to kick that field goal.
So I agree with that. I agree with the plays that led up to him kicking the field goal. I agree with you on that. What I disagree with, and I've heard people say this, you should have gone for it on 4th down. I 100% disagree with that. Once you're in that situation, kick the field goal. But the plays leading up to that, way too conservative. 100% agree with that. Thought they should have thrown. You had a guy that at one point had completed 19 passes in a row. 19.
Yeah.
Throw the ball.
He was running plays like they were running the clock down to 3 seconds to kick the game-winning field goal. That's how they were running their offense at that point.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because he did the opposite versus Alabama. He was very aggressive. And it was the opposite this game. Brent Venables was the aggressor, and he won. And that's why I'm not angry that we lost. I'm only going to be angry if we don't make the Big 12 championship and win it because this team's then I'll be livid because this team's way too good for that. And I fully believe, I'll ask you this question. If we play them on a neutral site 10 times, I think Texas wins 7 of them. Do you agree with that? Disagree with that?
I'll go with 7. Sure.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's what I think. You threw that wrench in about West Virginia. I came out with, I think this is the most realistic possibility, and this scares the hell out of me. So Texas goes, let's say we went out, we go to the Big 12 championship game, we win. What happens if Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan all beat each other and Alabama beats Georgia? What happens? What the hell happens?
Well, you want Oklahoma to be as good as they can be.
Yeah, but okay, we both have 1 loss. And the only difference is one was a championship game, one wasn't. Alabama beats Georgia, so then you're also being put up against an SEC one-loss team, and then you're also having Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State all having one loss.
Well, I think that the committee loves the SEC and always has, and for good reason. I get it. But this season, the SEC has lost all of its big games. I think that's going to come down to who's the most impressive, because Texas is going to have the win against Alabama. Two of the three Big Ten teams are not going to have conference championship games. So I think that favors Texas considerably.
Yeah, and that is true. Our schedule does help us because I really think Alabama at worst is a 10-2 team. The only way LSU beats them is if LSU can stop them like 6 times. And can LSU stop anyone 6 times in a game?
No,
that defense is god awful
today.
Yeah, but and
so I think
you're in a great
position because of the Alabama win on the road, and Ohio State's the only team that's played anyone out of those 3 non-conference, and that Notre Dame game is going to continue to possibly get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I think they'll have 3 losses. Also, people aren't talking about this. We beat the best non-Power 5 team. That's also going to help because Wyoming keeps winning, and that is aging well. Kansas, what they did today, that will help. There's honestly, I know this is homerism. Could be. Well, I'm not saying we should be ranked number 1 or 2, but in your poll, there's a possibility we could still be ranked number 2 because we still may have the second best resume. I mean, Kansas is 5-1, Wyoming's 5-1. Alabama's 5-1. So right. I mean, we have a good resume. That's what's so frustrating, Mark. If this what it comes down to, we miss the college football playoff or don't win a Big 12 championship because of it, that will hurt. That's the only thing that hurts. That's the only thing that hurts is what could happen. Losing this game is fine because if you could tell me we'll play them again in December, I think we beat them. Just get there. For God's sakes, get there. First off, the schedule's easy. You should get there. I think we played like today, we'd still beat everyone on our schedule because there's no good team left on our schedule.
This conversation right here is what has completely changed about college football in my lifetime, because you're not okay with this loss, but you're not okay with this loss more about the strategies and the scenarios that you're trying to play out and how much it damages Texas versus just the pure hate for Oklahoma.
Oh, I still hate them.
That was about 20 years ago, 30 years ago. That was college football discussion, was just you hated that team and you hated to lose that game. And I know you talked about that this week. You hate Oklahoma, and this is a hate week game for you, but that's what is completely changed about college football.
Well, I hate them so much I want to play them again. I wish we could be playing them again right now, because I think we let it slip away.
West Virginia's not going to win all those games.
I know they're not, and they'll lose to at least Oklahoma, and then one other one they'll slip up. And man, that would be something. If that's what stops us from getting to the Big 12 championship game is West Virginia wins out and we never got to play them. Wouldn't that be something? That would be, Mark, I may break down if that happens, because the one time where we could have played West Virginia and probably beat them, because we actually, honestly, I think we would have been playing them in Morgantown. We beat them there most of the time, and then we don't even play them. It's like, why this one year?
And also because, if they win those games, they're going to win them all like 23-20.
Like TCU did, who's going to be 6-6 this year. So, yeah, it's just frustrating. I mean, honestly, who are we going to lose to? Kansas State, who just lost to a bad Oklahoma State team.
Yeah, but that's going to be a different game. That's just,
I know.
Forget that, because I know it doesn't. Oklahoma State they've looked like complete rubbish, and then they pop up at home and win that game. But Kansas State is coming to Austin.
Yeah, that's what helps. That's why I'm actually worried more about the TCU game, because we play them in Fort Worth. Should I not be scared of Iowa State? Because I feel like I should be, but I don't know. Maybe I should be.
I still somehow think that Kansas State's the biggest threat on the schedule.
That's fair. What I will say is, what surprised me was Dylan Gabriel in this game. He's a lot more athletic than I thought.
Yeah.
That's how he beat us. He rushed for 110 yards.
I know.
So,
he did.
That's another thing. Like, if we just work on that, will help us actually for the Kansas State game. They will say, hey, this guy's just as good a runner as Dylan Gabriel. Keep him in the pocket with Will Howard, because he's not a great passer. Just got to keep him in the pocket. But it's going to be interesting. I don't know who. I mean, Michigan's the best team. They are. I don't see anyone on that level right now other than if Georgia consistently plays like they did tonight, I'll put them up there, but I think Michigan's the best team. Ohio State, I watched some of that game, but obviously I'm locked in on the Texas game. What was the main concern for you, obviously being an Ohio State fan?
Oh, there's only one concern I have about Ohio State, and that's their run blocking. That's the only concern I have about the entire team.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
they can't move anybody out of the way to run the ball. And their pass pro is fine. It's elite. McCord stands back there, has plenty of time. But they can't move anybody off the ball. It's horrible.
The good thing is that's probably only going to hurt you and are not going to hurt you until you meet up with Penn State and Michigan. So you got time to work on it. Yeah. But I mean, that's why I really think that's going to happen. I think they're all going to beat each other. I really do. I think Penn State's going to beat one of you guys and Michigan's going to beat the other one. And I think it's going to be a round robin. That's what I think it's going to happen.
And you think Michigan's the best team in the country?
I do. They're just JJ McCarthy could set up a tent and sleep back there all night and never get touched. I mean, he literally could sit back there for 10 seconds. It's insane. I've never seen anything like I've seen teams dominate the line of scrimmage. I've never seen teams dominate like that at the line of scrimmage. Now, what I'm going to be interested in is a team like a really good offense versus their defense, because I think their offense will translate to a good defense. And I'm not sure if their defense will translate to a good offense yet. I'm not. I'll have to see. Because, I mean, who's the best quarterback? Was the Minnesota quarterback the best quarterback they played?
Yes.
He is he's not very good.
No, he's not very good.
Yeah. So
they haven't played anybody. Like they have just their schedule. No. They have one of the worst schedules in the country.
Yeah. That's the thing though.
Like overall, but now they definitely do.
Yeah. But that's why, like, I saw that with Oklahoma. They had one of the worst schedules in the country too, but they're killing teams. And that does matter. How you look for bad teams does matter. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm going to put stuff into that. And I think Michigan's just the best team because they're the best team at the line of scrimmage right now. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think they're not Georgia from 2021. They're not going to just destroy whoever they play. I think someone can beat them, but I think they're the best team right now.
Yeah, I think they're the most complete team and they've been playing the most complete football, but against that competition, it's difficult for me to judge.
No, that's fair.
When you just have nobody on the other side that's got a pulse, I would love to see them line up against Georgia in particular.
Well, yeah, that's the thing too. Michigan, honestly, Cincinnati and Minnesota on a neutral field right now. Who do you take? I think Minnesota wins, but I think it's close.
Yeah, I take against Cincinnati.
I think
I take Minnesota.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, Oklahoma, that was the same thing with them. So it's going to be interesting. Like I said, I still think this is the most wide open year we've had. I think can they just move it up to make this the 12-team playoff? Because I really think the 12 teams can win the national championship. I really believe that. 12. I know you.
No,
you don't think it goes that deep?
No.
Okay. Let me just name them off real quick. And if you think they can win it, Michigan.
Yes.
Georgia.
Yes.
Alabama.
Yes.
Ohio State.
Yes.
Penn State.
Yes.
Texas.
Yes.
Oklahoma.
Nobody else.
That's it. So that's 6. Okay. I think Washington and Oregon can win it. And I would also throw in, I think Oklahoma, if they put like they did today and got some luck, they could. But that's what I'm saying. I don't think there's a dominant team. I just don't. I like I said, I think Michigan's the best, but I don't think there's a dominant team.
Yeah, I got to see those teams in the Pac-12 play somebody good outside the conference. Washington has yet to play anybody. Oregon hasn't played anyone.
They play each other next week.
Played anyone. They play each other next week. Yeah.
Sure. That's going to be, I think that'll be a good game. I'm not sure where honestly, what I think it's going to come down to, because those teams are so close. I think Connor, I'm rooting for you guys hard. I have some money on that game, so please win. But I think whoever is at home is going to win those games. So I don't know where Oregon and Washington play, but whoever's at home is who I would take to win that game.
Yeah. Again, I think home road's a little overrated. I would love to see some numbers on that. Nobody really delivers numbers on that kind of stuff. And everybody that I see that ever makes preseason predictions takes all those 50-50 games and they just give them to the home team. And that's how they decide who's going to win conference championships.
That's fair.
But
Yeah,
I don't.
that would be interesting to see numbers on
I
that.
don't see that. I don't see that play out. I do think home field advantage is a real thing and it matters, but I don't think to the extent that people think it does.
And then just last comment, and I'll let you go because I know you got a lot of people. Do you think how like to me what I've seen, I think Alabama, especially with Jalen Milroe, I think he's gotten he's gotten better throughout the year more than any quarterback I've seen, just like week through week. Like I thought he played pretty damn well today. There was obviously still some mistakes, but from when we played him to what he's doing now, he's way better than he was, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I think he's much better. And I think like we've talked about, they know what to keep him away from and what they can't call or ask for him to do. And they've done a nice job of just letting him do what he can do well.
And I thought Jeffrey made a good point too. I do believe that if they had this defense with Bryce Young, they probably win the national championship. And same thing with Ohio State. If they had this defense with CJ Stroud, they probably win the national championship. It's always weird how that works out. How when you need one, it's not there, and when the other one goes, it comes in. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, we'll see. The jury's still out for me on the Ohio State defense, but what they did today, I think, was pretty impressive because they basically gave up one touchdown drive. The other was a gift, and Maryland's got playmakers, and they've got a good quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's probably fourth or fifth best quarterback in the Big Ten. I think it's him or Hudson Card battling for that fourth spot, honestly. So,
yeah, I think he might be better than that.
You think you think he's better than, well, I had just McCord in there. I think it's McCarthy, Aller, and then I would have McCord, but you would argue that?
I think it's McCarthy, and then I think Aller and McCord have the talent, but I haven't necessarily seen them play better than Talia Tagovailoa.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I'm projecting. That makes sense. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Check it out. Texas Tuesdays. We will be here. We're on a bye. But we're going to dive deep, sadly, into that Oklahoma game. And then we'll touch on Houston a little bit. But let's be honest here. I hate to be Houston. That's all I'm going to say. I think Houston's going to get absolutely skull dragged in 2 weeks. But thanks for having me, Mark.
Thanks, Matthew. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
It's our guy, Matthew Miller. He hosts our post game for Texas football right here, the voice of college football. And as he just mentioned, Texas Tuesdays. It's every Tuesday at 7:30 Eastern time. All right. We will keep it moving. We got Buckeye Mike on the line.
What's up, Mark?
What's going on, man?
I feel pretty good. I have some doubts with State, like you were saying. I completely agree. I think overall we're starting to see the team mesh as a whole. So congrats on the win for State. That's definitely good. There was something that was pointed out in the Michigan game that backs up this whole soft schedule thing. So, of course, they play Penn State on November 11th. The rest of their schedule before Penn State has a combined record of 9-12. Their last 3 games have a combined record of 15-1.
9-12. I'm sorry to interrupt. 9-12. That's only 21 games. How does their schedule?
Because I think it's 4 teams.
Everybody's played 5 games roughly.
Yeah.
So their combined schedule right now would be about 30 games.
Maybe it might have been next week to November 11th.
Okay.
Or the next game till November 11th.
Yeah.
I do remember saying like 9-12.
I would like to know what their combined record is against Power 5 teams, what their opponent's record is against Power 5 teams. It's terrible. And for any Michigan fans, I'm not picking on Michigan. They don't make the conference schedule. Now, they made their own schedule. I will pick on them for making a crappy non-conference schedule for the second straight year and not playing anyone. That's completely under their control. I made this point a zillion times during the offseason that these teams control their non-conference schedule. So it's completely Michigan's fault. And Michigan should be able to take it that people are going to make fun of their non-conference schedule. It's their fault. They didn't schedule anyone. They scheduled UCLA and they backed out of it. Don't do that, or people will not make fun of you for not scheduling anyone.
Exactly. That's been my whole point the whole time.
Now, in terms of the conference schedule, they've got nothing to do with that. They can't control it. They play who the conference gives them to play.
So you mentioned out of conference. Do you think that realignment affects that in a bad way? Because, for example, like they have to play USC and Washington, I think, and someone else that's coming in next year. But
Yeah.
now they're not out of conference now. So,
Well,
what I
for
mean?
example, Ohio State's canceled its games with Washington, but that's a completely different situation than what Michigan did. Michigan canceled non-conference games. Ohio State had to cancel those games because that team is now in the conference. Yeah, these teams have no incentive to go schedule difficult non-conference games. Ohio State doesn't need a difficult non-conference, nor does Michigan, to go to the playoff. They don't need to schedule these teams.
Yeah. I just, when you schedule the cupcakes, it makes it harder for the defense of, well, our schedule's not soft. It makes it harder for that defense, in my opinion. And no offense to Texas or Texas fans, but like, for example, Michigan has Texas on the schedule next year. I think Texas could slightly fall off compared to where they're at this year. I think this year is going to be a good year, a great year for them, but they're going to kind of fall off a little bit. And so this whole defense of, well, we have Texas on the schedule next year, doesn't that, not make it a soft schedule? Not necessarily. If Quinn's gone, then you have Arch, and we don't know how good Arch is.
Okay. Well, no. If Michigan or anyone else schedules Texas, I am not going to in any way criticize their non-conference schedule. They can't control who leaves, who goes, who's back. It's Texas. They have one of the top 5 rosters in college football.
So as far as games, Jeffrey touched on it a little bit. Marshall, I feel like, shot themselves in the foot against NC State. I'm sure you didn't watch any of the game, which is totally cool. I know you're busy with a bunch of games. There were better games on at the time.
Yeah, I watch the big teams because that's what people want to talk about. So
that is true. I think, Fancher made some mistakes, could have played better, but road environment, first loss of the year. They're already at 4 wins. I'm sure they've got bowl eligibility locked up. I do love what Charles Huff, even though he used to be an assistant at Bama, which I do not hold against him at all. That'd be kind of silly to hold anything like that against anyone. I think he's basically taken the Alabama mentality and brought it to Marshall as best as he can. He still has some tweaks to work on. Notre Dame and Louisville, congrats to the Cardinals. That was a very dominant performance there. Some of that game, I don't understand why Freeman didn't pull Sam Hartman earlier or at all once the game was in hand for Louisville. I understand the whole mentality of, fight till the very end, till the whistle. But I think he would have been better off based on the throws I saw Sam was not making. That in my opinion, you should have pulled him, but then that's why I'm not the coach of Notre Dame, of course. Bama and A&M, there was a lot of questionable things in there for me. I constantly saw holding, but of course, they're not always going to call everything, which is fine because we don't want these games to be like 6 hours long. And then Arizona and USC, last I heard, it was 17-14 Arizona. To me, with the way everybody feels about USC, yes, that offense is very explosive, high-powered, high-scoring. Somebody's going to get them. They're going to get bid at some point, whether it's Utah because there's rumor that Sam Rising may come back for that by that game. It could be anyone really. If the Notre Dame defense from Ohio State decides to show up and the Notre Dame offense from Navy decides to show up, Notre Dame could get them. I don't think Notre Dame will, but somebody is going to get them. I don't see USC going undefeated.
If Notre Dame can somehow get themselves back off the deck after playing 3 extremely difficult games in a row and now having to play a 4th in a row, if they're at their best, I think that they have a great shot to beat USC. But I just question as to whether they can be at their best after having to play 3 difficult games and 2 of them on the road for USC, which USC has been able to basically stay fresh for this entire season. They haven't played anyone. They played They've played a horrible schedule too to date. Now it's going to get extremely difficult now, but this is going to be the first one, although they're having a rough time tonight with Arizona.
Yeah. And then, so one last thing before I go, I just wanted to ask you, do you think that the portal, the way that it is set up now and NIL, do you think it's had a negative or positive effect, or do you think it's kind of like in the middle? I feel like for the portal, at least, it's had a positive effect because you're getting these kids that are like, third, fourth string transferring, even though it's to smaller schools half the time, and they're getting playing time, they're getting the experience. I think, JT Daniels sticks out for a lot of people. I feel like is kind of the exception with all the bouncing around. But I mean, that's basically how I feel.
Yeah, well, my only question back at you would be, is it good for who?
Like for the sport,
Like
do you think?
when you ask me, okay, is it good for the sport?
Yeah.
I think while I can't answer this question exactly, what we're seeing with competitive balance across the nation with these teams, that generally we're going to have to see it year after year after year. We're going to have to see a few more years of this, but this season gives us indication that maybe the transfer portal is evening out talent across the board and making more teams competitive, and it makes it more interesting because we're not sitting here in mid-October saying, okay, well, Ohio State's going to win the Big Ten and Clemson's going to win the ACC, and Georgia or Alabama, they're going to play in the SEC championship game, and there you go, there's your playoff kind of thing. So this may be because of the transfer portal. There could be some other things involved. So for that, it's good for the sport. I don't know if the average fan cares to see a bunch of players leave his team. And then, I think that there is a certain pride watching NFL games and seeing that your guy, Ezekiel Elliott, always played for Ohio State, or Joey Bosa always played for Ohio State. It wasn't like they were at Notre Dame, then they went to Ohio State, and then they went their last year to, USC. They're Buckeyes through and through. And, fill in the blank, everybody in the chat, your favorite players that you watch in the NFL right now, they always played at one school. Now that's going to change very quickly and already has. So I don't know that that's good for the game. It's good it creates discussion during the off season. It keeps the off season chatter going because there's transfer portal additions and subtractions and talk that kind of supplements recruiting talk. And so that's a whole other, it's free agency for college football. So it's something to talk about. So it keeps college football in the news.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your opinion on it because all I heard today, but throughout the year was, well, the transfer portals ruined college football because these kids can just leave whenever. It didn't used to be this way, back when I was a kid, and you're talking 60s and 70s, these people. And this whole, well, college football looks like the NFL right now because if you think about it, the transfer portal is almost like NFL free agency because these kids can leave whenever they want and they can go wherever they want and this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, okay.
Well, I do think that there's a valid point there that the more college football is structured like the NFL, okay, we've got an expanded playoff now, and the bowls don't matter as much. Okay, we also have a transfer portal that looks just like free agency. That's just like the NFL. The more and more you take the uniqueness out of college football and make it more like the NFL, then why wouldn't people just watch the NFL? Because the football's a ton better. If you're just talking about who plays better football, well, it's the NFL. It's not even close.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff involved in college, and with all the realignment and not being able to recognize the Big Ten versus the Big 12 anymore, and there being no Pac-12. There's just been a lot of change to the sport, and people don't generally like change.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the problem. And for me, it's just, as long as it's college football, I don't care. I'll watch. I mean, you know me, lately I come on and talk about Marshall all the time. I will watch any game. Now, if it's crazy bad, like low scoring and just bad offense and bad defense, then, I will turn the channel. But I mean, the style of play that we get nowadays, I will watch. And the other thing too, going off of that, just real quick, if the ACC survives, since the Big 12 was able to survive, do you think that with those four conferences between the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, and the SEC, that we start to see some kind of formation within the conferences where it looks like the NFL, where, like, for example, I just thought of this over 5 minutes yesterday. Like, if you have the top team in the Big Ten play the top team in the ACC and the SEC and the Big 12 as their non-conference, do you think we start to trend in that direction, or do you think we continue to see what we see now, where it's mostly cupcakes out of conference, or it's Ohio State where you play Notre Dame, so you have cupcakes in one decent or not cupcake team? Do you think that could be the trend? I mean, obviously it would be like years and years down the road. I'm not saying like tomorrow they'll come out and say this, but do you think that eventually, with the way that the sport is trending, that it goes that direction? Or do you think that, yes, we have certain areas where we want to be like the NFL, or we are like the NFL at this point, we don't want to fully be like the NFL, so we're not going to go that way?
Okay, so I think that in a sense, I want to phrase this the right way, your whole line of thinking is, and I don't want to make this sound insulting, I don't mean it that way, but it's flawed in that when you say, are we going to be more like the NFL? Or are we trying to be more like, who is we? Like there is no college football. It's not like if we were talking about the NFL and we were talking about, does the NFL want to be more like the NBA? Well, we know who the NFL is. They're an organization and we know exactly who they are. College football is who is college football? Every conference does whatever it wants. There is no structure of college football to say this is college football and these are the goals of college football. That body, that entity does not exist.
I guess my long-winded point was, because someone said to me a couple days ago that they think that eventually the FBS portion of college football will break away from the NCAA and become its own entity.
Oh, well, that would be a good thing. As long as what really would need to happen is if these four conference commissioners would get together and they could agree on how the sport should be run. They control most of this. And that became most apparent to me during COVID. These conferences did whatever they wanted to. And if a conference said, we're not playing football, they didn't play football. If another conference said, we're going to march through this and we're going to figure out all these safety guidelines, we're going to play football, they played football. Nobody could tell them what to do. Nobody could tell them, no, you are playing because you got a contract, or nobody could say, no, you're going to shut down because it's unsafe. No, they did whatever they want.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It was a, quick 10-minute conversation with someone. I felt kind of interested with it. And like I said, I quickly laid out in my head a way that it could happen. I'm not 100% if I want to see it happen. But, to some, especially the older crowd, to some degree of people that watch, they do say that, with the advancements that we've made, you've kind of ruined the sport. I mean, the Rose Bowl is not even the Rose Bowl anymore the way it used to be, because it's part of the playoff. For example, that's always the big one they always throw out. Well, the Rose Bowl doesn't even mean anything anymore because it's not the Rose Bowl, really. But I mean, it's still important. But I know I've gone a little long. I'm sure there's a lot of callers behind me. Everyone subscribe to all the channels. And if you want a promo, go check out the promo I did last night. And have a good one, Mark, and we'll see you on the next one.
Well, thank you, Buckeye Mike. Have a good night.
You too.
We will keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. And basically, I'll make a one-line statement on this that is more of off-season type discussion. But the problem with the sport is that there's nobody to look out for the sport. NFL owners look out for the sport because they have the same exact interests. They work. They don't make it as the NFC East doesn't say we're going to do X, Y, and Z different from everyone else because we only care about ourselves. No, they all work together because they know they're going to make the most money and the health of the sport is going to be improved and increased by working together. But the Big Ten doesn't work together with the SEC. No, the Big Ten does whatever is best for the Big Ten. Tony Petitti, does what is best for the Big Ten, and that's his job. He's hired by the Big Ten, not to look out for the sport of college football, but to do what's best for the Big Ten, to put the Big Ten in the role of having the most prestige, the most recognition, the most money, the most everything. Greg Sankey, the same thing with the SEC. He may personally want to look out for college football and may personally care about the sport. And I've heard Greg Sankey make comments about not liking where the sport's headed, but that's not what he's paid to do. He's paid to make money for the SEC. All right. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. We got McD on the line.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I am doing just fine.
So obviously you probably know where I'm gonna go with the conversation. So let's get ready to it. The Maryland Terps lost to the Ohio State Buckeyes 37-17. I watched the whole game except the last 50 seconds when we punted it away. I just turned it off because there was no point watching that.
Sure.
But two takeaways from this game. Two big takeaways on why Maryland lost, in my opinion. Reason number one, we had no answer for Marvin Harrison Jr. He went like 8 receptions, I think 163 yards and a touchdown. No, just absolutely no answers. He's still receiving balls and catching touchdowns on us at this moment. So and that did surprise me a little bit. Not so much because Marvin Harrison Jr., he's elite. He's the best wide receiver probably in college football. It surprised me because I thought that this secondary was going to be pretty good, limiting Ohio State throughout the game. The game basically went the way I thought it would, but how it got there was not how I thought it would get there. I honestly thought Ohio State would run the ball all over us. I gotta give the Maryland front seven credit for handling the running game. Reason number two why we lost, and this was kind of the point of the game where the game was basically over after this, in my opinion. We're down 27-17, which is fine. I mean, I don't like losing, but we're driving the ball. Run play. It's 4th and 3. I'm okay going for it. As a matter of fact, I like the call going for it because it's 4th and 3. I think it was around our own 40-yard line. It might have been like our own 38. But I like the call. You gotta put that ball in Tola Tagovailoa's hand. I know he wasn't having his best game per se. I don't think he's the reason why we lost. You gotta put the ball in his hand. You cannot hand off the ball there and get nowhere. That was a horrible play call there on 4th and 3. I mean, there's no defending that. That was terrible. And there was a few other questionable play calls. Like we had a 4th and 1 earlier in the game. We put a quote unquote wildcat quarterback in Edwards.
Yep.
That was horrible too. I just thought once again, and I've said this a few times, I feel like at times the play calling is a bit too predictive under Mike Locksley. I thought that showed today. But overall, I guess the good news that came out of this, and I was gonna call you last night. I know you were live, but I fell asleep. I was gonna tell you, Maryland wasn't gonna be scared coming into this game, and I thought that showed. They did have to steal one. They stole one with that. I know everybody's saying that it was just a bad snap. I think that it was a called fake punt personally, but that's just me. Maryland stole one there. Good teams take advantage of that, and I saw 2 things that Maryland did that I really like. Scoring that touchdown, going up 7-0 after whatever you want to call it, the bad snap, fake punt. I personally think is a fake punt. And number 2, coming out of halftime with the ball after that horrible clock management to end the half there. Maryland should have gotten a field goal there to end the half. I love that we came out and scored 6. To me, that's what good teams do. And if you look at Maryland's schedule, we'll get our cracks against Michigan and Penn State. I mean, we'll be underdogs. I expect similar results. We hang in there going to the 4th quarter, but Penn State and Michigan pull away. Maryland should be favored in the rest of their games. I know I told you I was a bit nervous about Illinois and Nebraska. To be honest, out of our Big Ten West opponents, I might be the most nervous about Northwestern for the sheer fact that they came back down 31-10 against Minnesota, showing me that they will make the comeback. So, and looking at Rutgers, they might play us tough, but I expect Maryland to win that. And that's basically my takeaway. I thought we hung in there. Just 2 glaring things. I don't think Tola played bad. I know he had the 2 interceptions, including the pick 6. I don't think he played bad. I've seen that get floated around. I think he played good enough to win the game personally. But it's tough. It's a tough loss, but I'm okay.
Well, it was a well-played game by Maryland in so many respects, and they did just stuff the Ohio State rushing attack, and they ran the ball okay at times. They got a push at times. They didn't break free for any big runs, and then really in the 4th quarter, late 3rd quarter, Ohio State started to just stack up the run, and they couldn't run the ball. And Talia, I thought, played when he threw the ball well. He threw the ball well, but he did make a couple costly mistakes. In terms of the success of those 4th down plays, if I'm remembering correctly, yeah, they were 27-17. I haven't been able to locate where the ball was on the field. I thought that they were deeper in their own end when they went for it. Maybe I'm confusing that with Notre Dame going for it tonight in their own end. But that was the end of the game right there. Down 10,
Correct.
6,
Yep.
7 minutes left. You're in your own end, and that was just the end of the game. Like you, I find it hard to believe that that was not a called fake punt, because you've got a long snapper who, by my recollection, never doesn't snap the ball perfectly to the punter for Ohio State, and suddenly he snaps it at somebody else's feet. That's very
Yeah.
strange to me.
I thought, well, the reason why I thought it was a fake punt And here's the funny thing. I was yelling at my TV screen saying they're gonna fake it. They're gonna fake it. I had a feeling they were gonna fake that punt personally, and I was right. And to their credit, we stuffed it. And bad snap or not, Ryan Day tends to have a tendency of panicking when things don't go right away. Like I saw it last year in the Michigan game. I've seen it plenty of times before. Um,
Things didn't go right initially against Michigan. They had a 3-point lead at halftime.
What I mean what I mean by that is you know how all these teams have like scripted plays for the first drive?
Sure.
Maryland held them to 3 and out. I've seen Ryan Day panic before throughout games. Like not so much big time panics, but I've seen him make like boneheaded decisions in some games before, and I think it's because he panics when he's like, "Oh crap, they're better than what I expected," or whatever. But that's just my opinion, and I'm not criticizing Ryan Day. I just think that and every head coach panics, but I thought like James Franklin did it against Maryland during the COVID year. 4th and 3, kind of went for it when he was like a big favorite, and then Maryland ended up basically just stumping a mud hole up in Penn State and Happy Valley during the COVID year in that fluke game. But for another example for a head coach, but overall, that was a called fake punt. I mean, I didn't get Joel Klatt sitting there saying, "Oh, it was a bad snap," and all that. That was a called fake punt. It blatantly was. And so, but I mean, we lost. So it is what it is. I think we'll beat Illinois next week, and then we get a bye week. But if we beat Illinois, Mark, we're going bowling.
Yes, hooray.
So we'll see what happens. I know you have a lot of callers, but one other quick point I want to make, Mark. I told you Wyoming was going to be Fresno State.
Okay.
So best group of 5 teams, Wyoming, hands down.
It looks like it.
But,
all right, McD.
Just want to get my thoughts about the game. I know we lost, but I felt like it was the right thing to call in and take the heat.
I appreciate it. All right, McD. Have a good night.
Thanks for the call. You too.
And we will keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. A couple things to remember. We've got a Discord link that you can get by being a member on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/MarkRogersTV. Sign up there. We get you the Discord link. You get my picks. We should probably check out my picks to see how well I did, although the USC-Arizona game's still going on. I didn't think I picked that game. The one upsetting backdoor cover bad beat was that freaking Missouri LSU game. I took Mizzou in the 5.5 points. They're winning the whole game. I did pick LSU to win the game, but Mizzou to cover the 5.5. And their LSU scores the game winning touchdown with like 2 minutes left in the game. Mizzou's got the ball. They're down by 4. And it was actually going through my mind, do not throw a pick 6. Just lose the game by 4. We're good. Perfect. No, they throw a pick 6 with about 15 seconds left in the game. Bad beat on that one. But I'll have to check out my picks. I think they did pretty well. YouTube memberships. Go to the front of the YouTube page that you're on right now. You can sign up for a YouTube membership. Please do that. You get Steve Merrill's pick, which again, this not that $5 a month is exorbitant for most people. I don't want to make judgments in any such way, but certainly what we offer, I believe, is well beyond that. But hey, just in and of itself, Steve Merrill's under the radar selection each and every week. Let's see. This week was, oh shoot, I can't remember what his pick, but I know that it was correct. Oh, Florida to cover 18 against Vandy. They won by 24. That was Steve Merrill's under the radar selection this week. There you go. There's another correct pick. 17-2 against the spread. Where else can you go where somebody is 17-2 against the spread except for right here at the Voice of College Football? You tell me. Let me know in the chat who is 17-2 against the spread. All right. Here we go. Let's keep it rolling. We've got Michigan-Minn on the line.
What's up, man? What's going on?
Not too much. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. You want to hear a shocking stat?
Am I truly going to be shocked?
Yes, because it correlates to something you said earlier.
Okay.
What if
Michigan
I told you
has played the worst schedule in the country? I don't know. What is your?
What if I told you Ohio State's competition versus Power 5 and Michigan's competition versus Power 5 is the same, as in the records? They both have each beat 5 Power 5 teams. Exactly the same.
Wait a minute. The teams that Ohio State has played have 5 Power 5 wins.
And Michigan's has 5.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to think about it and look at it. But if you're
UNLV has 1, Bowling Green has 1, Minnesota has 1, Rutgers has 2, and then Maryland has 3, and Notre Dame has 2. Those are the only teams with Power 5 wins. Obviously, they have the bulk of them, but if you look, it's exactly the same.
Gotcha. So, yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, moving on. Man, it's a shame, man. I gotta say, man, it's a shame that this defense doesn't play more than 2.5 quarters because they be putting up historic numbers. It's a shame. They be putting up 21 Georgia-esque, 2011 Bama-esque numbers. I mean, they still have a team. Again, competition. I get it, but what they're doing is just absolutely ridiculous, regardless of competition. A team is still not entered the 10-yard line. The team, it's just suffocating. Tier 1 in college football right now is clearly Georgia and Michigan. I don't even know how there's an argument against it.
Well, there is an argument until they've played somebody. That's an easy argument to make. Play someone, and that's not Michigan's fault. Well, it is because they make the non-conference schedule, and that sucks. I'm not debating that Michigan might be the best team in the country. I'm debating that I can't place them on a tier by themselves or with Georgia because I haven't seen them play a team. I haven't seen them play a team that's better than like the 60th best team in the country.
In the 60th?
Yes. Somewhere in that range.
I would say Rutgers is a top 60 team.
Yeah. Roughly a top 60 team.
Yeah, I would say it's top 60. But they're also the only team. I mean, Georgia has struggled against bottom feeders this year. Texas struggled against bottom feeders this year. OSU has only put up 1 touchdown in the first half versus all the Power 5 teams they've played. They can't run the ball on anybody. They had 64 yards against Youngstown State going in the fourth quarter. They might have the worst running game I've seen them have in maybe this century. What team, even against bad teams, has shown the dominance Michigan has?
There's nothing that I said that has anything to do with what you just said. I'm not debating that. I'm just saying I want to see them play somebody decent.
Hey, I do too, man. I'm sick of these starters only playing 2.5 quarters. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Like, I'm only seeing 2.5 quarters of our starters playing football, and it's getting kind of boring. I agree.
I wanted to produce a video tonight because people watch my Michigan videos. So of course I'm running a business, so I want to produce videos that people watch. But I just thought, you know what? I didn't watch this game. I was watching other better games. And so I didn't see, I flipped it on for a little while and it was already like 31-10 and I saw them get a pick six. And then Corum run for another touchdown, and it was just a joke, and they were blowing them out. And obviously, it wasn't competitive football. So I just thought this is just a repeat of last week and the week before and the week before. Well, especially the last 2 weeks. Although, yeah, I guess it took a while before Minnesota got blown out. It was 24-10 at half.
Yeah, and I mean, look, they had that touchdown with like 4 seconds to go. Before the half, it was like a 40-yard touchdown. It was just a bad, lull you to sleep kind of I mean, the coverage was decent. It was just kind of like it felt like the defense was just like kind of sleepwalking on that play a little bit. I mean, it was 24-10 at half, and they just, I don't know, they just look. It's the best Michigan team I've seen. Period. I don't 20 last year they were really good, but it looks like the same team last year, but even better and deeper. I mean, there's just not much to say. I mean, I want to talk about Ohio State a little bit. I think McCord's playing pretty good in the second half of games. I don't know what's with the start of their games. He looked pretty good towards the end of the games, but I mean, Mark, do you agree that this is one of your worst O lines you've seen in probably a long time?
Oh, sure. But they pass protect though. Yeah, but in the run game, yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah, I think the pass protection is good, but I even think the pass protection is not what it's been either. I mean, we talk about competition, right? I mean, Maryland has won a terrible. They did not have a good rush defense going into this game. I think it was ranked like 60 something in the country. They don't have a great pass rush either. Notre Dame, who I would say has the best pass rush, probably the best defense you've played, I think had like 18 pressures in that game. So I'm not sold that they have a elite, quote unquote, elite pass pro either. I think it's maybe good. I don't even think it's elite though. Yeah, either. So I don't know, man. I've been saying that I think the defense is. I'll admit this. The defense to me is better than last year, and it's not because I don't think it's because. I think it's because they changed their stylistically what they do. Last year they just brought the house. It was a lot of zero blitzes. It feels like this year, Jim Knowles was like, "Look, we're not going to be anywhere near that much aggressive. We're going to keep 2 high safety. Sometimes we'll do some cover 1, but for the most part, we're playing zone and we're playing back, and we'll make teams drive the field." Now, does that sacrifice in the run D? It does, because Ohio State right now is ranked not even the top 30 in rushing defense. So, are you better on the back end this year? Sure, but it's going to be interesting to see how good the rush D could be, because it has taken a step back because of that sacrifice.
Yeah, and you're just talking about rushing yards per game, correct?
I think that's what it was. Yeah, I think they're like 32 or something.
Yeah,
32nd, something like that. That's a concern I would have, because it feels like under Ryan Day, the trenches have gotten worse since Urban. Each year they've gotten worse, and to me, I want to. Penn State's going to be an interesting test, even though I don't think that they have the most elite. I feel like they get stopped a lot in short. They don't have really a lot of breakaway runs, so that's going to be interesting. But that's going to be a good test, because I think Penn State can get some rushing yards on Ohio State.
Yeah, they probably will, just like Notre Dame did. But Ohio State contained the run. Nobody ripped off any big runs against them. And there was really only 1-2 drives against Notre Dame that that they got manhandled up front and got pushed around. Yeah, they've had a combination of the offensive line recruiting it's been really good by almost any other team's measurements, but it's not been elite as much as other units on the field. Number one. Number two, they haven't developed their offensive line play well enough. And they probably need to do what Michigan's done the last 2 years and go in the transfer portal, which they did, but it was not very successfully with Josh Simmons, and go get some top-notch offensive linemen.
Yeah, I'll say this: watching Ohio State's O-line and watching Michigan's O-line. Michigan's O-line looks massive compared to this year's Ohio State O-line. I think Ohio State's O-line's a little smaller, especially at the tackle position. They're smaller than they've been. Michigan's offensive line looks huge. I mean, they're not Bama size, but I mean, you can see the difference on the field. Oh man, that's pretty much all I got. Oh, I guess one last thing, man. Do you think that do you think that Notre Dame, are you in more wait and see mode with the defense, Ohio State's defense, after seeing Notre Dame really struggle on offense 3 weeks in a row now?
Sure. Yeah, I am. Although I think the Maryland game shows me a lot. I was impressed with Ohio State defensively today, and I do think that they probably got Notre Dame's best shot and I think they've kind of worn down the last 2 weeks. And they also played them, of course, in South Bend. But yeah, Ohio State's defense played a great game against Notre Dame outside of 2 drives where they got the ball run down their throats.
Yeah, Ohio State, I think Ohio State's defense better. And like I said, I think it's because Knowles was like, look, I can't just stack the box with everybody and blitz on every down. I don't even think he's blitzing. Do you think he's blitzing that much this year?
No.
He's not really blitzing at all to me. I mean, he blitzes occasionally, but for the most part, I don't think he really cut that out. So
yeah, he did. They saved a couple blitzes for the second half against Notre Dame, and it kind of surprised me. It kind of took me off guard, and I was like, "Oh wow, yeah." They threw in a blitz or two, but they only did it a couple times.
Oh wow, Arizona just tied it.
Yeah, that's awesome. 8 minutes left. Arizona tied with USC.
That's wild, man. All right, man, I'm gonna get out of here, man. I can't wait for November, man. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes, man. I'm excited though. I can't wait.
Yeah, I am too. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye. I'm excited too, and that is not because I think Ohio State's going to walk all over Michigan. I think Michigan's playing better football than Ohio State right now. So that if they played right now, I think Michigan wins the game decidedly, whatever that means, by a couple of scores. But I also thought at this point last year that Ohio State would beat Michigan by a couple scores, but Michigan kept getting better and better, and Ohio State they had injury issues at running back. They both did, but Ohio State was running what turned out to be a really good running back because he's starting in place of Travion Henderson, Chip Tranum, but he had 1 carry going into the Michigan game. All right, anyway, we'll keep it going here at the Voice of College Football. Everybody that's lined up is not a first-time caller, so we'll just continue to take them in order. Sean, what's going on tonight?
Hey, Mark, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Doing fine. Another great day of football.
Yeah.
Here, Buckeyes. I know you've popular topic tonight. They've got a lot of warts. I mean, I was happy with how they performed, especially in the second half, but there's something missing to this team. And they don't look championship quality to me right now. I think they're elite on the perimeter talent in both the offense and the defense. The secondary play has been fantastic through 5 games. But, I mean, this line play right now.
Yeah, the line play's awful. In the run game, I have no issue with the pass blocking.
They're still giving up some quick pressures. It's still inconsistent. I mean, they gave up, was it 3 sacks today? Something like that.
Yeah, I thought at least 1 or 2 of those McCord hung on to the ball too long.
He did. And there was one also that basically was a sack. There was a completely blown assignment where the rush got in real quickly. McCord retreated and dumped it off to train him for like a 20-yard loss.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which, I mean, there should be a little bit more game awareness right there. I mean, like, train him's right there. Just put it right at his feet. There's no way he's going to make a positive play out of that.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, come on. I mean, like,
yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, but this is, I mean, the run blocking game. I mean, Travion, it's easy to excuse saying Travion's out, so that made a difference. I don't think it did at all. And these running backs are more than capable, more than fine. Williams and Trainum, will get to the hole. They can run through it. They can absolutely get the yards that are blocked for them. and there just wasn't anything today. It was just, and I've noticed this with Day in the past in some of these games. Like when the running game is not working, he keeps doing it. They just keep churning out attempts. And you would end up with a lot of second and nines.
Big picture. He's looking at the big picture and he's wanting to figure it out, work it out, have these blockers in this offensive line work at their craft.
I mean, yes, there's to that point to that, but he did this in the Michigan game a couple years ago. They kept running the football and it wasn't working. And you know, that's a game where you're not figuring things out in the Michigan game. Yeah, so and they kept putting themselves in like third and longs because they were just hitting their heads against the wall. And they ended that game with 23 points against Michigan, where it's just like, you know, you've got 3 first-round NFL wide receivers and number 2 overall pick at quarterback. Just just attack. Just attack. Just, you know, they're not going to stop you 3 times in a row very often. So, that was some of the the in-game adjustments. Is that he seems a bit obsessed with balance at times, and I think that can be to his detriment.
Yeah, well, you might be right. I just stated what I think he's working on, what he's looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And on the defensive side, first half they were still getting gutted a little bit on these zone runs. You know, there was some real they tightened it up a little bit in the second half, and
I thought they tightened it up considerably. Did they really get gashed that much?
There were a lot of like 5 to 8 yard carries in that first half. It was a bit concerning, and Notre Dame. This defense, I think what they're strong at doesn't exactly suit very well with Penn State, what Penn State and Michigan like to do. This is, I mean, if they were playing teams that were pretty air heavy, any team that's pretty air heavy, I think this offense is fantastic. This defense is really, really good against. They're really well equipped.
Well, Maryland's first touchdown drive, they didn't run the ball at all.
They didn't exactly run. One of them was a little
pop pass.
Pop pass. It's effectively a run, though, right? I mean, it was a screen. Sure. It was so that that kind of works in with
on the next drive. They drove it 50 yards and they had a 6-yard run. 3, 2, 2, 5, 0.
Okay.
Then they had a field goal drive of 60 yards, and their runs were 4, 8, 2, 8.
Okay. But yeah, that's
then 4 and 1.
So what did they end up? I know they ended
3,
the game with
2. Yeah, I would think we would, if we were concerned, it would be overseeing 12, 15, 8, 6.
Yeah, I mean it's it was a nut. What I saw from them in the Notre Dame game and what I saw from them today, because the first 3 opponents weren't really any sort of test for them in the running game. I do think there's some vulnerabilities there that teams that are really elite at getting upfield in the running game, which Penn State and Michigan, definitely Michigan is very good at it. Like that could be concerning, but I don't know. Maybe it was just the stress of watching a tight game that made me a little bit, it made me a little bit more sensitive to those, 8-yard runs than I probably should have been. But yeah, and McCord, I mean, he's coming along, but man, he starts slow every game, doesn't he? It just,
Yeah, he does. He does start slow every game.
yeah.
And hopefully he is able to work himself out of that. He still has only started 6 games in his life. So,
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
all right, Sean.
Yep. All right. I know you got a
anything else?
million people to get through here. Thank you. You have a great one.
I appreciate it.
Take care.
We got about 5 more calls, so we will make it on through here. We got Jackson stepping in here. Jackson, what's going on tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, Mark. I'm doing a lot better from a sit day that I had the other day. Watched a little bit of Rifleman in style while I was waiting for Saturday.
Okay,
So,
nice.
get-
Some Rifleman. Love that.
Oh yeah, he was helping out a painter get off the alcohol. So that was a pretty good episode. How you doing, Mark?
I am doing just fine. Did you know that I liked the Rifleman? Did we talk about that before?
Yes, we did. It was on
Yeah,
week
okay.
1 on the 24-hour stream on the
Yes.
second half where we
There it
talked about
is.
Big Valley, Rifleman, Gunsmoke, Wanted Dead or Alive, Have Gun Will Travel. Love those shows.
Yeah, doesn't put up with
man.
anything. All right,
Nope.
Jackson, what's going on?
Nothing much. I just want to talk a little bit about how sloppy Alabama looked today, especially with the 14 penalties they had against
Yeah.
Texas A&M. I mean, if they hadn't had a blocking call on them, they would have returned a blocked field goal for a touchdown.
Yeah.
So it's like you can get away with that kind of stuff against Texas A&M, but you can't get away with plays like that against other teams.
Well, how many teams are they going to play that are better than Texas A&M?
That's true, though. I mean, if we were playing like that against Georgia in the SEC title game, we would look like a disaster. Yeah, it's But as for A&M, Jimbo's still dealing with that hot seat talk, and we'll definitely see whether he's going to rebound against Tennessee on CBS next Saturday. Here is one thing I wanted to go over a little bit, and this is about Gus Malzahn.
Okay.
So earlier this week, he got a new deal. I sent it in the private chat. So he gets like a raise. And this is a little bit after the blown lead against Baylor, where he blows that 28-point lead.
Yeah.
And then they get smacked around by Kansas as of today. Now, is it just me, or did Central Florida get a little too premature with giving Malzahn that contract extension?
Well, let's see. This would be his, 21, 22, 23, his 3rd year there.
Uh-huh.
Well, they're happy with him, apparently, even though, I really don't know what the hurry is.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
I
know
got a
that
feeling they're
he's
not
a
going to be
hot
too.
commodity that he's going to be going anywhere.
Maybe to Arkansas, but that's it. But I'm just like, not going to fall for that. But I will say, TCU's kind of looking like a one-hit wonder, unfortunately. I feel bad for what they're going through.
You feel bad about it.
Yeah, but I am pretty happy for Iowa State, though. I like old Matt Campbell. He's a good guy.
I don't know him. So,
I don't know him either. It's just I watch him a lot. So it's just like... But I'm pretty happy for Louisville tonight. They had a great night. Jeff Brom's pretty happy. Good buddy of mine, Austin, I told him all off season, you're going to be mighty thrilled with Louisville this season. And he is very happy.
Yeah, we got Austin waiting in line here.
Oh, man. Jahar Jordan, he was player of the game right there. He was pretty good. He had 143 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 21 carries. So there we go. And next week's going to be pretty good. But that Texas Oklahoma game, that was a great game.
Absolutely. It certainly was.
It was indeed. And Mark, thank you for having me on.
All right, Jackson. We appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you for having me on as always, Mark.
All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We got Michael on the line. Michael, what's going on tonight? Hello, Michael. Michael,
I'm here. I was muted. Congrats
on
the win today.
How you doing?
I'm hanging in there, but kind of perturbed about Purdue. Iowa was giving that game away today, and they couldn't take advantage of it. But I don't understand. With them having success running the ball outside of the tackle boxes and stuff like that in the second half, what on God's green earth made them decide to throw street when they still had plenty of time left in the fourth quarter with just under 3 minutes to go in the game instead of running the ball passing the ball?
I don't know. You'll have to explain to me what happened. I did not see one play of that game.
Sack, incomplete passes. The next three was incomplete passes. They never even tried to run the ball, trying to eat clock and stuff like that. They would have gone down and scored. They would have beat Iowa.
Well, wait a minute. They lost 14-10.
No, right? 20-14.
Or 20-14.
Yes.
And you wanted them to. Okay. There was obviously how much time was left in the game. You know, I just don't have a reference point as to what was going on.
Under 3 minutes.
Okay.
And stuff. Instead of trying to run the ball, they threw the ball.
Yep. Were they running the ball successfully?
They didn't aim in between the tackle boxes, but they was able to do outside runs and stuff like that. Successful.
Okay. Well, they obviously felt as though that was their best route to success.
Yeah, but with Iowa's defense, everybody knew that they were going to load the box and bring everybody and stack everybody in the backfield and stuff. They only had like a 3 or 4 man rush. But what I don't understand is, wonder when the last time an Iowa receiver did not have a reception in a game.
Probably like 2 weeks ago.
Was it? Oh, yes, Penn State.
The way Iowa's offense operates, their receivers generally don't catch any passes. Mm-hmm. I know that I heard last week or the week before that, Ralph was saying last week that they had like 14 total receptions out of their wide receivers the whole season.
Mm-hmm. Not bad, but no, kudos. I wonder what woke up Ohio State at halftime.
They knew. I don't know necessarily anything woke them up. They just probably just kept playing. They're a better football team than Maryland, decidedly. So
yeah, but crazy ending down in Miami tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out as soon as I get done here because I did not see it.
No, I was just wondering stuff like that. Hopefully, teams are Purdue going to most likely lose next week, but maybe it'll be a blowout, maybe it won't, or maybe it'll be a repeat of 2018 in West Lafayette next Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I think it'll be a decent game.
Yeah.
I don't expect Ohio State to blow out Purdue.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I wonder what the early lines is right now. But how surprised are you about
I would guess it's maybe 17 or 18.
Yeah, I think that's what it was back in 2018 too. But how surprised are you about USC right now?
I'm not surprised because I think USC's defense is awful. I think they're showing us this again tonight. Now that Arizona's been able to hold USC to 28 points, now that's a whole other story because to USC, that's nothing with their offense, which at times I've thought is probably the best in college football, but maybe not. For Arizona to be that competitive playing against USC's offense, and I've just had the screen on in front of me, and I haven't really watched it, so I don't know what to tell you, but I'm somewhat surprised.
All right. Now, two more things. One, that was a nice win for Bama team. My second thing is, am I the only person in college that's a college football fan that's not afraid to bash their own team they like in other teams?
I don't know. There's a rash of people that don't. Arizona just missed a field goal.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, for example, like Michigan hasn't played anyone, and that's partially their fault because they did not schedule in the offseason. And I just bring that up, but I don't know why Michigan fans take offense to that. That's just the truth. It's just a fact.
But aren't those scheduled out 4, 5 to 10 years in advance, though?
It depends what schedule you're talking about. If you're
The
talking about the
non-conference.
non-conference,
Yeah.
yeah, but when you could schedule Colorado State, Hawaii, and East Carolina, whenever you schedule them, you're always going to know that they're going to suck. So yeah, that's not a knock against Michigan fans, or it's not a knock against the team. It's a knock against the university. It's a knock against the athletic program for scheduling like that.
Yeah, just like when Purdue went to Blacksburg and Syracuse last year, they scheduled them back like what, 10 plus years ago, and whoever thought they was going to be bad and stuff. Well, except for Syracuse getting smoked today and Virginia Tech, who knew they was going to be bad teams?
Well, my point is that when you schedule certain schools, you have about a 90% chance of knowing that they're going to be good, and others a 90% chance of knowing that they're going to be horrible.
Bad. Yeah. But no, my deal about bashing is like when teams play bad.
Yeah.
It seems like they never bash them. It's like they always give them props when they win, but when they lose or play bad, they never bash them.
Well, all fans are a little bit different. I don't necessarily think it's a good thing for fans to bash their team.
I mean, so it's okay to compliment them, but when they play bad, it's not right to talk about them. Say, hey, they're playing bad football right now.
Not if they don't want to.
Yeah, true. I guess he's just prerogative.
Okay, let me be clear about that. Okay. If there are fans out there that don't like to bash their team when they lose, I don't have an issue with that. But if they want to have a conversation about their team and they don't see the truth or the facts, well, that's something that's completely different.
And that's the point I'm doing. Like, that's just like, I remember a couple weeks ago, how bad was I going ballistic on Purdue when they got smacked? Remember when I said how they looked like they were back in the Daryl Hazel era?
Yes.
That's what I'm, stuff like that. But anyway, it is what it is. I am going to let you go because I know you got other callers on. And I missed your ranking the other night. I didn't see it, sir, for the Big Ten.
Yeah, I did not get to them.
All right.
Did not get to them. All right, Michael. Appreciate you being here.
See you.
All right, let's rip through these in rapid fire fashion, like rapid fire fashion. Let me address what Moose is saying here. Okay, you keep yelling us. Michigan hasn't played anyone, and every week we dragging everyone. Okay, these are two different things. Michigan's a really good football team. They might be a great football team. The players and the coaches didn't make the schedule. Nobody made the non-conference or the conference schedule except for the conference. The conference makes the conference schedule, so Michigan has nothing to do with the conference schedule. And their conference schedule is pretty much the same as Penn State and Ohio State's. It's slightly worse, but not noticeably. Michigan not scheduling anyone difficult non-conference the last 2 years is their fault. And so I don't have an issue with them not scheduling anyone, except for I'm going to criticize them for not scheduling anyone. So they shouldn't take offense to that. So to correct that, schedule someone. Okay. And there's also a difference between Michigan having UCLA on the schedule for 2 years and canceling when UCLA was not part of the conference versus Ohio State having to cancel Washington. So Ohio State's going to have an awful non-conference schedule next year. Do I like that? No, I don't like that, but it's not really their issue. They couldn't help it. Washington entered the Big Ten. They could not play them out of conference. All right. So yes, this is not the fans' fault. The fans shouldn't take any offense to that. This is not the players' fault. It's not the coach's fault. It's not anyone's fault except for the athletic director and the Michigan football program that schedules games. It's weak. It's pathetic. But no Michigan fan should take offense to me saying that. It's not their fault. It's not your fault. I'm not blaming you for Michigan having a horrible schedule. I'm blaming Michigan. All right. Let's rip through these. John, what's going on tonight?
Oh, not much. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine.
All right, I just had a couple things I wanted to say real quick. One thing that Jeffrey said about it's obvious Kentucky's not a top tier team. Can I ask you something, Mark? Do you think Kentucky's better than Auburn?
Yes.
So, since Kentucky got blown out, does that mean Auburn's better than Kentucky?
No.
In Jeffrey's eyes? Okay. I just wanted to ask.
You can't. I don't believe in the transitive property. What I believe in is in a resume. And at this stage of the game, just because, again, we could run circles all over the place comparing teams and make any team look better than any other team.
Yeah, no, I was just making the point like he was acting like Alabama hasn't lost to Georgia and all that, so they're not a top tier team. And then I completely forgot my train of thought now. Oh, I wanted to ask, do you have any news on a buddy of mine was telling me that something with the Pac-12's holding up the 12-team playoff, something about blocking Oregon State and Washington State from trying to join a different conference because they're trying to merge with a different conference.
The only thing I can say about that is, number one, we're going to have a I believe it's Tuesday night. We're going to have a get together on that and do a live stream about all of that circumstance involving the legalities and all of that. I haven't really looked into it, but it does have to do with the Pac-12 is still legally and technically a conference. Those other schools left the conference, but there's still a Pac conference, a Pac-12 conference. It just has two schools. So once we go into the off season, technically speaking, those two schools, they do have some legal backing and legal reasons as to still having a conference. And if they say, you know what, we're going to schedule all non-conference games and we're going to play one game between the two of us, and that's going to be our champion, and we've got a conference. Now, for as ridiculous as that sounds, there is some legal, I don't want to say precedent, there is some legal confirmation or backing for that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just didn't know. That's crazy, though. That would be something to hold up the 12-team playoff because of that. When it came to, I'm kind of finding it hard to understand the logic between everyone's like, well, that Notre Dame win doesn't look that great for Ohio State. But why do teams I'm not just talking about Ohio State, but why do teams who schedule out of conference opponents that actually are worth a dang when those after they beat them, like Notre Dame lost tonight? Why is it that Ohio State gets discredited for that, but yet teams who go and schedule UNLV don't get the same kind of looks when it comes down to the end? I just never really understood that.
Well, I know what you're talking about, but when you
at least they scheduled Oregon home and away 3 years ago now.
Sure.
And then scheduled Notre Dame home and away. We got punished for losing to Oregon. But I just think,
well, you're going to get punished for losing games.
Right. But what I'm saying is, like, you got people bashing, oh, well, that Ohio State win don't look that great right now. By the way, Maryland would be a ranked team if they played in the SEC. You come in 5-0. I don't see why you're not ranked. But you got a 2-loss, what was it, LSU team?
Yes.
In the top 25, and they can't stop a cold.
Yeah, well, I understand your point, but also other teams can't stop them. So
right, yeah, that does make sense.
LSU has played a much
Florida State
difficult schedule, much more difficult schedule than Maryland.
Yeah, that is true.
So that's what's difficult about ranking, because I'm not discrediting what you're saying at all. I totally understand and partially agree with what you're saying, that teams that are 5-0 or whatever the number of games at that point should be credited with winning games rather than always saying, okay, these teams over here, they keep losing, but they're losing to quote unquote good teams. There has to be reward for winning games. However, there is a substantial, up until this week, before this week, a substantial difference between being 5-0 and your best wins were against Charlotte and Michigan State, I guess, versus being 3-0. Arizona just blocked the field goal against USC. They're going to overtime. That was
Wow.
pretty incredible. Or the difference between that and being 3-2 and having to play Florida State, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Who did LSU beat besides Mississippi State? They beat somebody else that was decent. I don't know why I'm not coming up with it. Arkansas. So yeah, that's the difficulty I have in ranking teams.
Right. Well, let me ask you this: do you think like Maryland, like there's like some teams out there, like Maryland was 5-0 coming into this year, but do you think Maryland, even teams like Maryland coming in, still 5-0 or whatever? Do you think that teams actually look at the brand, like not teams, sorry, people that do the rankings and people who have the opinions on these schools? Do you think they look at the brand name and like, oh, well, they're not usually that
Oh,
good?
sure.
You
Yes,
know,
they do.
it's pretty much, getting slept on, I guess
Oh,
you
yeah,
would say.
absolutely.
I called a couple
If
weeks ago
Ohio
and
State played, I'm sorry to interrupt, John, but
you're fine.
if Ohio State, Oklahoma, whoever you want to throw in there, USC, played the exact opponents Maryland did, they'd be ranked.
Yeah.
And it also depends on where you start. And this is another idiotic approach, is it depends on where you started.
Yeah.
So, like, if Ohio State was number 5 in the country to start the season and they had Maryland's schedule and played the exact same games, the exact same, they might get bumped back a little bit if other teams had more impressive wins, but they wouldn't be any lower than 7 or 8 at the lowest. But Maryland started unranked. They won those 5 games and they just didn't get ranked.
Yeah, I called you a couple weeks ago and I've been telling my buddy who's a Michigan fan, Maryland is well, other than outside of the team up north, Maryland was the team that I was most concerned with. I think that Ohio State I think they can beat Penn State. Penn State looks sluggish off and on. So is Ohio State. But Maryland was the team with the offense, and Tagovailoa has, in my opinion, he's improved every year that he's been there. It's not like he's just stayed the same every year. He's improved. The weapons have improved. The coach is doing a great job there. I still hold some kind of hostility for the whole Chase Young thing towards Maryland. I don't know if you remember that.
No.
The week we were supposed to play Maryland, it came out that Chase Young I forget what he did, but they had suspended him for it.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I forget what year it was, but Chase Young got suspended for that game. But did you know that, and well, the Michigan fans too, why did they back out of the UCLA? Do you know why that was?
I don't think that there was a reason given.
Okay. The Michigan fans thing about the soft schedule and all that. I mean, let's not forget they backed out Ohio State game too, but that was a different reason.
Yeah.
Do you think that Texas pretty much showed the rest of their opponents the blueprint on how to beat them? And I don't think Texas I think Texas played a D game. I don't think it was a B. I think his name was Matthew. I don't think it was a B game. I think it was a D game. And I think every year, every time that Sarkisian has a lead, he seems to go into this prevent defense on the last drive. And it's just very soft coverage. Before the Buckeyes got the defense coordinator got now, they did the same thing. I don't understand why any team, NFL, college football, why they do that, because it doesn't seem to work out most of the time. I understand you want them to drain the clock, but yet then you leave yourself open to that. And I wasn't I wasn't sure. I caught the end of it. Did Texas have any timeouts left when they were confused on that touchdown play?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah,
I
because
was watching, but I was watching so many things. I don't know.
Right, yeah, because they were confused on that touchdown play, just broken coverage at the 1 yard line. I don't know how you blow a coverage at the 1 yard line.
I know it. All right, John. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the call. All right, Matador Mike, little Texas Tech angle. I like to read that. Like to get some fresh blood and new names and new teams involved in these conversations. So USC-Arizona going to overtime, tied at 28. Matador Mike says Texas Tech looks better now. They are running the ball. Taj Brooks, 4 games in a row with over 100 yards. Could be 5 if given more than 6 carries for 66 yards against Oregon. 3 teams who beat us are combined at 14-2. That would be Wyoming. Oh, shoot. I don't want to go through it now. Wyoming, Oregon, and who did they lose to in conference? West Virginia. Yeah. Yeah, and Texas Tech with a win today against Baylor. All right. Saw in the chat a couple places where Arizona blew it, but they didn't blow it. All right. Anyway, Lemansky, appreciate the contribution. Thank you so much for that. Thanks for staying with the show so late. Your fandom appreciates. Well, I do appreciate it as well. I would stay on here all night if we had the numbers to justify it, but we unfortunately don't. So we only have like 150 people here. So if we could get, where in the past 5, 6, 800 people, it would just justify it a little bit better from that standpoint. All right, let's finish up here. Austin, what's going on tonight?
Feeling great, Mark, after that big win against Notre Dame today. I'm feeling great about that. I got a couple of questions for you about that, though.
Yes.
So after looking at that and watching that game, does tonight tell you more about us as a team, Louisville, or Notre Dame, in your opinion?
Louisville.
It works. It works both ways because I know a lot of people didn't have faith in us at the beginning of the year because new coach, got to figure it out, all that. And Notre Dame, they were predicted to be at least a college football playoff team, maybe even a quarterback away from maybe even getting to the Natty, maybe winning it all. It's interesting when you look at that. But what's your opinion on that?
Well, again, Notre Dame has pretty much been the same program and a similar team each and every year throughout this entire thing, even transitioning from Brian Kelly to Marcus Freeman. So this tells us more about Louisville than it does Notre Dame because you got a new head coach. You're playing the best team that you've played the entire season. There's a whole array of reasons why this tells us more about Louisville.
Yes, and that transitions into my next thing I wanted to kind of go in with it. Do you see us as ACC contenders now? As where before maybe you could say, as Jeffrey has mentioned multiple times to you, we could easily 2-3, which I understand that because, sometimes the ball falls your way, so to speak, and it fell our way a couple times. But now looking at it, a path to the ACC championship game possibly, because there seems to be no clear favorite as we speak.
Well, technically speaking, as you well know, tonight's game had nothing to do with the ACC race.
Yes, but it also makes it more interesting now because people will realize that we are just as much a threat as, say, North Carolina or maybe a Miami is, correct?
Yeah, and I completely understand your perspective because from a fan's perspective and in terms of emotion, yes, the optics look better, but tonight's game had absolutely nothing to do with the ACC race. Louisville could go 0-4 in the non-conference and doesn't have anything to do with the ACC race. Now, did tonight's performance show us that they can compete against some of the teams that they're going to be playing? Sure. It's the best performance we've seen out of the football team this year.
I agree with you on that, Mark, because now I think it does show that as far as non-conference play goes, I know it's been a big topic, for you as Ohio State fans, like, your Notre Dame win doesn't look as good now because people don't look at us as saying
the brand that Ohio State and Notre Dame is, of course. And I think that's interesting. Like, just because we beat Notre Dame, how does that discredit your all's win? I don't get that part of it. Maybe you can explain it better.
Well, it's a great question. You're delving into perception. And so if Louisville continues to win and win and win and win impressively, then that makes the Notre Dame game appear to be more valid. But if let's say Louisville goes on to lose 3 games and finishes 9-3, well, while that's a good record, they're already 6-0. So if they split their last 6 games, then the Notre Dame game is going to be less valid and therefore less valid for Ohio State. Ohio State most likely doesn't need that game one way or the other to make the playoffs. It's fine that they just won the game, and their playoff fate is going to come down to Penn State and Michigan. So it probably doesn't even matter what Notre Dame does the rest of the season. But yeah, Notre Dame losing games, there's a difference between Notre Dame losing the game and Notre Dame winning the game, that it's going to naturally reflect on Ohio State. That's how it works with all these teams.
Yes.
Texas losing today has a negative reflection on Alabama losing to Texas, as opposed to Texas going undefeated and going 12-0.
Yeah, it has a domino effect to it. And that's the interesting thing, too. But one of the last things I want to touch on about this game is, Martin, what has happened to Notre Dame and their play calling? Normally, we were loading the box and we were stopping the run. Why didn't they feel tempted to throw the ball more than they did? And
I don't know. I would have thrown the ball to the tight end a lot more if I were them, because he's one of the best in the country. Now, the outside receivers, though, were pretty non-existent in all 3 of these games that they've played the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, and it's just like they
didn't run the ball that much today. Estime only had 10 carries.
Well, the thing that I'm pointing out is the 3rd and 1, they ran a jet sweep, they fumbled it. And even Will on the postgame show for Notre Dame was like, why are you doing that? That's asking for a turnover. I just don't understand that. Looking from our perspective, it's great. Give us another turnover, give us a short field. But from their perspective, they got to be shaking their head like, why are you doing that? You're not USC with all these fancy gadgets. Like, try to play Notre Dame football.
Well, they did, and you just said that they should have been throwing the ball more.
And obviously that message didn't get through. But, Mark, I know you got more callers. I'm very happy about this win. Hopefully we can continue momentum forward. And good night to everybody, and go Cards, everybody. We're 6-0.
All right, let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. We got Golden Playbook here. Appreciate you jumping on board.
How's it going?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
Rough
night.
I mean, it's a rough night. Just seemed like the team just didn't really show up. Like, really, didn't really throw the ball enough downfield. Just a rough night. I think the coaching was just awful, and I don't know how I feel about Marcus Freeman now.
Yeah, well, he's a new head coach, and just like last year, I think there are things that he's learning.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty rough day today, but obviously USC is playing right. Are they, is it still overtime?
Yes, still tied.
No. Well, it's going to be, I don't know where we go from here now. I mean, next weekend's going to be USC, and I really don't have any faith now, after that performance. But I guess anything can happen. I'm actually going to be going to that
You may
game.
not have much faith in your team, but are you watching this? They're playing Arizona. So these are very imperfect football teams.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I don't like have faith, like I don't have faith in Notre Dame next, like against USC, even though USC is struggling against Arizona.
Okay.
Because Arizona still, I mean, I guess they're a pretty good team. Well, USC still got
Are
a bad
they?
defense.
Yeah, they're decent. Yeah, they're not a bad team, but yeah, I understand your disappointment over the way your team played tonight, but at the same time, um, yeah, USC is no elite great team.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting, because I think our defense is pretty good, but it's just the offense seems like it got worse, over the past like 3 games for some reason, and I think that's maybe they're just mentally like drained or something, just not having a bye week. I don't know what it is, but I'm
Well,
not
they've had
really
to play
big on.
3 difficult games in a row, physically, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah, and maybe that could be it, but I'm not really big on Gerard Parker. Really, he's not really giving Sam Hartman, the opportunity to throw it down the field enough. I don't feel.
Well, I don't know if they have the receivers to throw it downfield from what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean they don't really got like explosive receivers or anything like that. Um, they do got one like good at tight end, but that's about it. So I
Yeah,
guess
he's
that's kind
great.
of yeah. So I guess that's kind of pretty tough too, not having that. We do get some good backs though. We got Jeremiah Love and Jabron Payne, but an SMA, like I'll say, he's okay. He's not as fast to me. Too slow. I mean, he's a good back, but he's not really like a crazy like explosive like player. It's kind of I don't know. I just don't think he's all that good. I mean, I would say he's solid, but he's not. I feel like Jeremiah Love is a lot more talented than him, like in terms of like speed.
Yep. All right, man. Anything else?
Um, no, that'll be pretty much it. Just wanted to call in and some interesting games today that happened.
For sure. Well,
But
we appreciate the call.
alrighty,
All right. Have a
thanks.
good night.
All right.
All right. Yeah. So Arizona scored, missed the 2-point play, got batted down in the end zone. Now we've got Caleb Williams and the USC offense on the field down by 6. So if they score, they've got to go for 2. And there you go. So here's the deal. When we get to overtime, these defenses are tired and worn out. And in this case, neither one of them's that good. So you've got 2 bad defenses that are tired and worn out. So you just hope that there's a penalty. If you're rooting for Arizona and the upset, you hope penalty, deflected pass, something negative that can happen. And that's certainly not Caleb Williams taking off, although there's a flag on the play, which might be a hold on USC. We shall see, unless it's a hold downfield on Arizona. We'll see. Yeah, so we've got the right tackle held, and we'll see if on the replay that it really mattered. Yeah, it did. It did. When I see a penalty that's crucial to a play and crucial to a game, I at least want to see that the penalty mattered to the play, and it did. It was right there in front of Caleb Williams. So now we've got a 1st and 20. Oh, we got Go Dogs here. My apologies. Go Dogs. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Well, Mark, thank you. I hope you're doing well also. I just wanted to share a couple thoughts from today.
Sure.
First of all, the Red River rivalry shootout was unbelievable. What a great game!
Yeah.
And all the games that I was watching at noon were good. Missouri and LSU were good. Was a very good game.
Yep.
And yeah, there were a lot of great games. But honestly, I think aside from the Texas Oklahoma game being like, I think my favorite thing of the day, I think also I'm pretty convinced now that Michigan should be the number one ranked team because they are 6-0, right? And they have dominated every day that they've played. And they may have played not so strong a schedule, but they're doing exactly what they need to do against the people that they're playing. I mean, they're jumping on top of them and then just suffocating them until the end of the game. And they look really good. So Michigan's my number one team. And then I'll be very tempted to put next week the winner of the Oregon-Washington game at number 2. And then between like 3 and 6, I think you could put a bunch of teams in any order, like Oklahoma, Georgia, Ohio State. And I'm leaving one out here. Who am I leaving out? Somebody. Anyway.
Florida State.
Oh, yeah, Florida State. Thank you. And so that's, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me then is that, Michigan is probably my clear-cut number one team now. And as a Georgia fan, I was happy to see Georgia actually do the things that I thought they were capable of doing, but hadn't really shown up to this point, which is take over a game offensively and defensively, score points, and they did a good job of stopping the run for a team that demonstrated that they can run the ball in Kentucky. That was really good to see. I don't know if they're a top 4 team, concretely, but they're in the, top 4 to 6 discussion area, much more so now than they were before. And then the last thing that was unbelievable for me today was the call by Mario Cristobal and the Miami offense to not kneel at the end of that game that had won. And they just turned it over. And then Georgia Tech actually scored on like a 44-yard touchdown pass.
Yep.
That was unbelievable. I mean, that is the kind of game that is going to be on highlight reel for years because it was such an unlikely and such an unnecessary way to lose for Miami. It was unbelievable. So, man, I don't know how Miami is going to recover from something like that. I guess they still have everything that they want in front of them. They can still win the ACC, but God, after giving a game away like that, I don't know how they can.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know what else to say besides the coach blew it. And even though he blew it on the kneel down, the chances of giving up a 75-yard touchdown drive in like 25 seconds is like 5% maybe, and they still were able to accomplish that. So even despite the blunder, he should have been able to get been taken off the hook, but that was not the case.
I just don't get it. And I watched his press conference at the end of the game, and I don't really feel like he took the responsibility that he should have at the end of the game, for not going into victory formation and taking the win.
Yeah, well, I would say that I, of course, don't know Mario Cristobal, and I've not seen enough of him to make some kind of character judgment, but that's not his way in press conferences. I've seen him always deflect and never take responsibility for obvious mistakes, blunders. Yes.
Well, he's got to fix that because that sets a poor example and, doesn't give me any kind of confidence, even as an outsider looking in, that Miami can avoid making a similar mistake in the future if he won't even focus on what part he had to play in failing to recognize the situation and call the right play. But anyway, I'll let you get going, Mark. I also want to reflect what that previous commenter said about appreciating you staying on so long, and I'm happy to talk to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for waiting in the chat there before you could get on.
All right, of course. Have a good night.
Thank you. And I want to pass that along to all the callers. And that's not just for tonight, but I do realize that when we've got 10 or 12 calls, and even if we've only got 3 calls, one of the benefits that you have here is that I typically let people just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And you may not get that at other places. But the downfall to that for many of you waiting is obviously you're waiting through very long phone calls. So I do appreciate everyone that gets on here and waits and waits and waits and waits your turn. So thank you for that. Arizona had a chance to make a stop there. It looked like they had Caleb Williams pinned in and were able to kind of tackle him before he made it to the end zone, but they did not. So Caleb Williams made it in for the 2-point conversion. And now we've got Noah Fafita, who started his first game last week for Arizona in a strong effort against Washington. And it's one play to keep this thing alive right now. And if I could, everyone, I'd show it for anybody who does not have ESPN. But of course, we can't do that. All right. Oh, their pitch. Oh, my word. Did they really do that? They tried to run it in for the 2-point conversion. Really? Really? They tried to run it. Yes, Bootzilla, USC does kind of stink, don't they? This is okay. We'll see them continue to play better teams. They've got them lined up now. Notre Dame starting next week, but Arizona played them extremely well. And I rarely rip on play calling. But you're not gonna. It's unlikely that you're going to run it in from that. You put the ball in the hands of your quarterback in a run pass option type situation. They threw him out at the 15-yard line. It wasn't even close. Oh man, they blew that up from the start. So USC is going to take a beating in the rankings, which shouldn't really matter too much. Well, they don't matter at all until the College Football Playoff Selection Committee gets a hold of all of this in a few weeks, and they will rate this as a very bad win. But it is a win, and it's a win in the conference, of course. Yeah, I got to say, I was pulling for the Wildcats. I always pull for the underdog. If it doesn't involve me or my team, I pull for the underdog. And I apologize for anyone that's still calling in. We are shutting things down. We've gone through all our calls, but thank you so much for joining us. And maybe we'll pop on at some time on Sunday, although I've got a ton of videos and content that we will provide on Sunday for all of you. And then throughout the week, we got our Big Ten Live show coming up Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Head on over, everyone, to the USC channel right now. So Tim, Tony, and Rick are getting set to bring you USC postgame. That's over on the USC channel. Let me put that in the chat so you can all get there. So it's apropos that Saturday ended this way with another phenomenal finish. Please go to the USC channel. Shoot, let's see. Channel. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here. The Voice of College Football. I've got a early morning wake-up call. Have a great evening. Enjoyed the football. Thank you so much for calling. Thanks for being in the chat. I never take it for granted. Bring some folks with you next week. and throughout the week as we cover college football. You know what we're going to do this week, what we always do. We're going to preview as many games as we can get to. We're going to do a ton of live streams. We've got 15 channels, and we've got a Iowa show, Nebraska show, Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, USC. So lock it in, and certainly subscribe to the USC channel and the Big 12 channels as well. We need some support there as well, and we appreciate all of you, and we will see you soon.